Waiting for the magic dust to open up.
I think we're doing it. I think we're live.
I think you're live and I'm not live yet.
Yeah. Well,
it always hits you first.
It always,
Boom,
well, yeah.
there it is.
The internet starts at the ocean. We've been through this. We figured it out. In California, it literally starts from the ocean. There's a gnome pedaling right on the coastline, and then the internet goes and it hits Pedro Town first, and then it eventually gets to you.
The visual on that's quite strange. Anyway.
I'm just explaining science.
The gnome peddling the internet. All right.
That's how the internet works. It is, in fact, a series of tubes.
It's a series of tubes. All
Some
right.
Republican said that back in the day. I don't remember who.
It might have been Marjorie Taylor Greene, actually. If I had to bet
on this is before her. It was a while ago. I forget. I mean, yeah, maybe someone in the chat remembers. It was a long time ago, though. This was pre MTG.
Pre-MTG, then it would have to be Christine Donnelly. I'm going with that one. Do you remember her?
I mean, barely.
Who was the one that put out the clip that said she wasn't a witch? I am not a witch.
Oh yeah, I think it was a guy. I think a dude said it.
All right. So, everybody's like, "What are you two people talking about?"
They're like, "What show are we watching? We don't even know."
We're just waiting for some people to file in here. Welcome, everybody. Today is November 10th, 2022. It's a Thursday. I'm Tina Desiree Berg. I'm here with my co-host, Ron Placone. And we have lots to talk about today. We have epic meltdowns happening across the board. We have some election wins for progressives, not only on ballot measures, but also in some office positions. Some digital rights stuff to talk about. And then immediately following the live stream, right-wing insanity report. Today, I have a special guest that is an investigative journalist at Bucks Beacon, and she works on Christian fascism. So she's an expert in that area. She will be joining me for an interview on Seven Mountains, which is an extreme evangelical dominational thing, and some other issues. So that should be interesting. All right, Ron, which meltdown do we start with first? Because there's a couple of meltdowns. I think we're going to start with Twitter, right?
Yeah, let's go to Twitter first. Let's talk Twitter because there's just so much to talk about, and it touches on so many other things. And then we'll be able to kind of transition into some election talk from there. So.
All right. So Twitter, I mean, what's happening at Twitter? Is it exploding? Is it going to survive? Is Elon Musk intentionally trying to kill it so that he could take the tax write-off? I'm not sure. I want to.
That's an interesting theory. That's an interesting theory
at this point, because it seems like he's intentionally trying to kill the platform. So I want to pull up a series of tweets from Zoe Schiffer, who is the managing editor at Platformer. She clearly has an ear on the inside, and she's sort of live tweeting this meeting that is happening with Elon Musk at Twitter headquarters. So let's put that up, Colin. All right. So Elon Musk is doing an all hands with Twitter employees. They got a 1 hour notice and he showed up 15 minutes late.
That's good leadership.
That's good.
That's fantastic leadership. Actually, you know what that really is too? And I didn't mean to interrupt here, but just to throw this in, that is dictionary definition narcissist. Because it's like everything is on your freaking time. Everyone is a character in your play. So you're just like, I need to have a meeting right now. They're like, are you freaking serious? Yeah, I'm serious. And then you show up late. That is
okay. Well, then wait till you hear what he said
narcissist.
Next. Wait till you hear what he said next. After he followed up with this. Elon Musk just told Twitter staff, if you can physically make it to an office and you don't show up, resignation accepted.
Oh my God.
So that sort of checks what you just said. So here's the interesting part. Wow, Elon Musk just told Twitter employees he's not sure how much run rate the company has, and bankruptcy isn't out of the question. So, run rate, that's how much money cash that they have left to burn through to keep operations going.
Yeah, usually the Wall Street term is runway, but Elon Musk is just so cool. He said run rate, I guess. But yeah, what that is it refers to how much cash flow they have before they just run out.
Right. So, and then the last in the series is now he's talking about making Twitter a peer-to-peer payments platform. I don't know what that would look like, but it sounds horrific. It sounds like something I would not want to.
Well, my guess is that's just a more glitzy way of saying I want people to pay for it.
Well, yeah, clearly he
that's my
wants
guess.
people to pay for something. He overpaid for the for the for the platform, and now he's trying to make up the cash for it.
Mhm.
But he's doing all the wrong things, right? Like somebody should do the opposite of what he's doing. It's just amazing. So, we've seen this week where he has basically angered all of the advertisers, so they paused their ads. He had absolutely no regard for their brand safety, which should be at the top of his list if he wants to grow his advertiser base. Then he decided he was going to have a paid verification system that is off to a booming start, by the way. We're going to look at some of that in a second, too, which is basically ridiculous in the sense that a verification system is supposed to just authenticate that somebody is real, that they're genuine, that you can trust who this person is. It's not supposed to be about prestige. And he's sort of trying to say, I'm going to make it about prestige. And at the same time, while he's doing that, he's basically opening it up to so many people that it no longer has prestige. It's sort of like saying, here, can you see my fake Gucci handbag?
Well, and in the latest development, and we're gonna dive into the specifics here, so we'll show people what we're talking about. He's trying to have his cake and eat it too. He's trying to hold on to the valid, verifications, but then he's also trying to be like, but you can also pay for it and you get more. And it's just a freaking trade wreck. And we're gonna dive in and show you why. But before we do that, smash the freaking like button. And if you want to join the conversation, please do leave us a super chat. We will get to all of them before Right Wing Insanity Report. Help keep this show on the air. And remember, you are funding on the ground journalism.
Indeed. All right. So before we get into the booming train wreck that is Twitter Blue, I want to put up a second thread from Alex Heath. This is interesting. So he has an article in The Verge. A Twitter lawyer sent an alarming message to colleagues this morning, saying that Elon Musk is willing to take on a huge amount of risk in relation to this company and its users, and is at the risk of putting the company in violation of its FTC consent decree. So that's a wild thing to do, right? I want to scroll down to this this tweet that has a letter in it. This was sent to all Twitter staff this morning by the legal leader on its privacy team. It's pretty remarkable. So I want to read this. This is some crazy stuff. Over the last 2 weeks, Elon has shown that he cares only about recouping the losses he's incurring as a result of failing to get out of his binding obligation to buy Twitter.
Can I translate that sentence real quick?
Yes.
Elon is the dog who caught the car, and he did all of this out of his own ego, and now he lost some cash and he's pissed off. Continue, Tina.
All right. He chose to enter into that agreement. All of us are being put through this as a result of the choices he made.
All right, translation. He has no freaking clue how to run this thing. Continue, Tina. We got to do live Cliff Notes.
No, it's good. Elon has shown that his only priority with Twitter users is how to monetize them. I do not believe he cares about the human rights activists, the dissidents, our users in unmonetizable regions, and all the other users who have made Twitter the global town square you have all spent so long building and that we love.
Translation. Elon Musk is just a capitalist, and all of you edgelords who thought he was some free speech warrior, surprise, he isn't. Maybe you should learn what free speech actually is too, by the way. Continue, Tina.
All right. I have heard Alex Spiro, current head of legal, say that Elon is willing to take on a huge amount of risk in relation to this company and its users. Because Elon puts rockets into space, he's not afraid of the FTC. That is a direct quote. Because Elon puts rockets into space, he's not afraid of the FTC.
That's right. Well, they can't chase him into space. The FTC doesn't have a rocket. He knows this. So he'll be like, I can't show up for court if I'm in space. Only Jeff Bezos can catch me, and he's not interested.
He's definitely not interested. All right. I have heard another leader in the legal department say that because of the tight SLAs of 2 weeks between the product inception launch, legal will have to shift the burden to engineers to self-certify compliance with FTC requirements and other laws. This will place a huge amount of personal, professional, and legal risk onto engineers. And then we go to the second page. I anticipate that all of you, hang on. I anticipate that all of you will be pressured by management into pushing out changes that will likely lead to major incidents.
Translation. Elon is blatantly breaking the law, but he doesn't care because he's a billionaire and he thinks he's above the law. And the only way he'll have any consequences is if the FTC grows a spine, which has not been located since the 80s. Tina, continue.
Right. All of this is extremely dangerous for our users. Also, given that the FTC can and will fine Twitter billions of dollars pursuant to the FTC consent decree, extremely detrimental to Twitter's longevity as a platform. Again, we're back to the longevity as a platform, right?
Translation. He might be running this thing into the ground, y'all. Continue, Tina.
Our users deserve so much better than this. If you feel uncomfortable about anything you're being asked to do, you can call Twitter's ethics hotline at 1-800-275-4843 or submit a report at ethicshelplinetwitter.com. Please do note the FTC's, and then it's cut off, but you get the point. So this was sent out to Twitter staff this morning by the legal leader on his privacy team. So now half of these people have resigned, is my understanding. There's also...
I would. What would you do if you got that? Would you be like, I got a great gig. This is stable. I mean, the tech world, everybody thinks like the tech world is the most stable thing ever because they only hear about the success stories. They hear about the engineers at Facebook or Amazon or something like that. What a lot of people don't realize is for every Facebook, for every Twitter, for every Amazon, there are so many startups that just go belly up in a couple years because they're just like, here's your runway. Are you going to overtake this like $1 billion success story? No. Well, you're done, because they don't give a hoot about anyone's livelihood. They just want to make as much money as possible. So they don't realize that for like just regular programmers and stuff like that, if they think they're part of a bust operation, they jump ship real quick. You freaking got to.
Right. So Colin, further down in his Alex Heath thread, he quote tweets somebody that was an ex-in-house attorney there at Twitter. I want to sort of highlight some of the things that he said. It's the one that says Rihanna Pfiffercord. Keep scrolling down there. You'll see it. It's the one that says this thread from Twitter's ex-outside counsel argues that Twitter has already violated its FTC consent order. So basically, this thread is an explanation on what the consent order is and why this is probably... Yeah, thank you so much. There we go.
Translation: everybody start plugging your Mastodon account. I'm at Romplacone.
Right. Okay, so as the story shows, the world's richest man does not experience human concerns per some Twitter handles. The exceedingly rich were no longer even remotely human. Consequences like taxes are for the little people. So he's sort of trying to get at the point that billionaires don't necessarily behave in a way where they think consequences will affect them, which is, I think, true.
Yeah, that's putting it gently.
Let's put it gently. Then he goes on to say normal companies have security and privacy controls and care about legal compliance. But this is not normal. That's what has people worried. The chief twit's track record shows that, but that's illegal isn't usually a persuasive argument. So to hear. In 2011, Twitter agreed to a 20-year FTC consent order over its data security practices. In May, FTC fined Twitter $150 million for violating the 2011 order and issued a modified order. If Twitter so much as sneezes, it has to do a privacy review beforehand. There are periodic double outside edits, and the FTC can monitor with compliance. Per the order, a small team of senior execs is now on the hook for making privacy and security decisions, which are legally binding on the company. And a senior officer has to certify compliance with the order annually to the FTC. This everyone must self-certify thing is nonsense. Dollars to donuts, that small team mandated by the FTC order equals all of the people that just quit. So,
oh man,
Ron, who's running the shop at Twitter right now? As we speak, it sounds to me like there's massive security issues where anybody's data is up for grabs to whoever. And then you're going to couple this with the... Go ahead, sorry. I was saying we're going to couple this with the fake... I would say couple this with the fake Twitter blue verification process system, and it's just like...
Well, wait, we're getting there next. Hold the line on that one. That's next. But our data has always been vulnerable. It's not like that's anything new. But now it's like you just have this Like, you just have this random guy in charge who has no clue what's going on, who, by the way, and we called him out for it here at Status Coup, he said before he owned Twitter that we should all have encryption protection on our DMs. He thought that that was a good idea.
Yeah,
I
he's
agree.
definitely
That is a
gone
good
the
idea.
opposite direction.
Now, all of a sudden, it's not a priority anymore. All of a sudden, now that he's the guy with access, it's not a priority anymore. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that
I
interesting?
mean, it literally sounds like there's no security protocols or being monitored right now. So I would imagine
So it's
that
gotten
makes,
even worse.
yeah, I would imagine that makes the system incredibly vulnerable.
Mhm.
All right. So let's look at some of the mayhem that's coming out of the monetized Twitter Blue accounts.
This is very funny.
There
There are some very funny verified accounts already that are just so like I saw a conversation between a fake Ben Shapiro and a fake Ted Cruz, both verified. It's something. This is something. But let's dive in. Smash the like button.
All right, let's start with the fake George W. Bush.
That does imply that there's a real George W. Bush, which is, but.
All right. I miss killing Iraqis. Y'all are missing the point about the $8. So I love that this guy came in and said, I'm making a point here. Y'all are missing the point about the $8. It's a small price to make this app completely unusable. And I'm assuming he is going to quickly learn we can get refunds from the credit cards we used if he suspends us prior to a month.
Oh, yeah.
What these guys are basically saying is they're gaming the system. They're saying, I'm going to sign up for the Twitter Blue, pay the $8. I'm going to fake this account, whether it's George Bush or whoever else. Laura Loomer, I saw one, and I saw JF Kennedy account. So I'm going to make this fake account, say some super hilarious stuff while it's still verified. And then if I get suspended, I'm just going to, go for a chargeback, and I don't pay a dime to do it. So
I feel like all of these things could have been like, how did they not think of this ahead of time? Like, I feel like a 20-minute meeting, anybody with like 2 brain cells to rub together would have been like, this is not going to work. This is a very
I'm pretty sure those people did exist and they got fired or left.
Well, yes, no, you're right. Absolutely. That is what happened. And it's just so now he's trying to have his cake and eat it too, because he wants you to pay for this verification. But that goes against the point of verification. That goes against what made Twitter a valuable tool, is that this is coming from a certain person to put in your news article or whatever.
It's like having a fake Gucci bag and you know it's fake, but you think everybody thinks it's real, but everybody else knows it's fake. Or
you can see like see something above that says it's fake or real. Because now it's like
because if you hit on, so if people don't realize this, if you hit on the verification symbol, it will tell you right on there like that they paid for Twitter Blue, or that they were verified because they're notable as a journalist, government official, or whatever else. So,
which is hilarious. So it's basically a subtle shaming of like, I mean, not intentionally so, but it's basically a subtle shaming of like, hey, yeah, this person paid for this.
All right, so let's go to the conversation between fake Ben Shapiro and fake President Biden. So fake Ben, can we put that one up? It's really funny too.
I don't think I saw this one. I didn't see. I mean, I've seen a few of these just scrolling around on the old
Colin,
internet.
it's in the same thread. It's right below. So the Joshua Hill thread has like multiple. Do you see? There we go. There we go. All right. Thank you, Colin. All right. So fake Ben Shapiro says, Matt Walsh won't stop calling me and talking about genitalia.
President Diary. Wow.
Fake President Biden says, I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. All right, let's go down to the next grouping. Fake OJ Simpson says, yeah, I'm NGL. I did that shit.
Not going to lie.
Then Dave Chappelle says, trans women are women, no longer team turf, y'all. Which I think is epically hilarious, by the way.
These are something.
Now we go down to fake Tony Blair. Same, to be honest.
Oh, jeez.
I swear to God, this has to be the same guy. So he quote tweets the fake George Bush saying, I miss killing Iraqis was same, to be honest. Absolutely classic.
Oh
Oh
man.
man, I know. So let's go to the fake,
Oh God, I saw this
the
one. The
fake
Rudy
Rudy
Giuliani
Giuliani.
one is rough. Oh my God.
Nancy Pelosi and I do not agree on many things, but them things thing, and I'll tell you what.
Wait, there's way more. Is that the only Rudy we have? The Rudy Giuliani one is wow.
I think his account got. I tried to get more screenshots, but it got
Oh
suspended.
really? Yeah, because that one was that one was kind of like,
Um,
oh man.
so the fake Elon Musk one's really funny. Starting today, we'll begin offering Twitter Gold, a free subscription that gets you yearly family vacations and nightly dinners with me. If your name is Grimes, please come back. I love you.
Oh man. And all they had to do, and look at this, all they had to do was do an underscore
Right.
in their
And then
handle. That's it.
exactly. Here's the daddy of them all, the fake Nintendo of America flipping us off. So this is what we're talking about right now with brand safety, right? So it's understandable why brands that have been advertising on your site, Elon, don't want anything to do with this. Like, how is it not obvious?
I mean, this is very funny. And this is, in some ways, this is kind of the people fighting back because, well, it is the people fighting back. I mean, I wonder, I'm not convinced that this is the beginning of the end because I still think there's a chance he might just bail. I still think he might just
Sell it,
bail, cut his losses.
give it back to Jack. Yeah, I agree.
Give it
All
back
right.
to Jack or give it to I mean, I'd love to see it be like just a public utility. I'd love to see that happen. But
All right.
I could
So
see him selling it back to Jack. Yeah.
I'm actually happy to tell you I do have another one of the Rudy tweets.
Oh man.
So the next one, Colin, is the fake Rudy Giuliani. There it is. Okay. I am hereby issuing a challenge to Alan Dersh. Street beefs, come get some Dersh. There can only be one dusty old pedophile attorney around these parts.
All they had to do was add an Esquire to it, and they got the freaking verification.
I know it's insane, and it's not
It's
as if the people taking this money cannot read the guy's name. It's obvious that they're trying to, even if he changed his name after verification, right? The handle you can't change, right? So the handle had to have been there.
The people taking this stuff are just freaking exhausted. They know they've been assigned a ridiculous freaking task, and they're just like, okay, I don't freaking know. Half my friends quit last week. I don't know. What am I doing here? He was 15 minutes late for the meeting.
And still said he was going to threaten to fire me if I didn't. Yeah. So we have a couple more of the Rudies in this thread. So the next one, he's quote tweeting the AP. Sarah will be wonderful for the great people of Arkansas. She gives the sloppiest toppy this side of the Mason-Dixon.
Oh, God. Sheesh.
Talking about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And then the last one. I stand with Kyrie Irving and Kanye West because George Soros once pushed me down in the street and I was stuck on my back like a turtle for several minutes.
What?
I can't.
I mean, some of these are just pretty funny visuals.
But I'm not done. I got more. All right, let's go to the next batch. All right, so I wanted to bring up this one because they've now given Twitter verified blue badges to accounts that have been suspended.
Oh, geez.
Which is just insane to me. And this one also you can see where you can see it says this account is verified because it's subscribed to Twitter Blue. So Gays Against Groomers, which is the big anti-trans account, they bought a badge, and so did their friends at Wait For It, Libs of TikTok.
What did Libs of TikTok do again? I forget their story.
They steal video off of TikTok, right? So they've been nailed for copyright infringement.
Okay.
Various forms of harassment speech, whatever you want to call that. I don't know if it's directly being considered hate speech, but they were suspended for saying hateful things against trans folks. So they're very anti-trans, very anti-gay, homophobic stuff. So they had multiple violations before they were terminated, and they're back, and now they're verified. Because of course they are.
Because they paid for it. Well, and here's the other thing
hell.
too. he's still prioritizing if you pay for the
Right.
verification. So if you're verified because you're actually just verified, it doesn't matter. You're just verified and people can see that. That's how he's having his cake and eating it too, or trying
Right.
to. If you pay for it, you're still prioritizing mentions. You're still, I mean, basically everyone else is going to get buried in the algorithm. So
Yeah.
it's just gonna be all this fake stuff
It's annoying.
dominating the platform, which is going to be humorous. But of course, it's sort of, you know, just erases what Twitter is supposed to be as far as
Right.
being a valuable tool. So, I mean, if
It's
it doesn't
really
change, this is the
problematic.
beginning of the end if it
I
doesn't
agree.
change. I'm not
It's
convinced it's not going to change. I
I'm
think
not
it
either.
probably still will. But if it doesn't, like, this is eventually just going to be a freaking parody website. And once the joke gets old, which it will, it's over.
It's over. Yeah, people are going to be done with it. This is only interesting for a few days. You know, so when you go into your notifications, if you have a verified account, so I have like 4 columns. I have verified people in one column, so I can filter out everybody else and just look at my verified mentions. Then I have all, which is like everything. And even then, they don't always show everything in there. They have muted certain words and stuff, like because they think I'm a snowflake, apparently. I don't know. Then they have, let me go over there right now so I can read it all. So, okay, so wow, they got rid of one of them now. So they've been playing with this all morning, is what I'm getting at. When I first logged into my Twitter account this morning, the all column was gone. All I had was verified and mentioned. So I was like, what happened to my all column? Like, I want to see what people are saying. I don't want to hear from fake blue Twitter accounts right now. Are you kidding me with this? But then they brought it back. So I don't know if they're like just playing still with what they're doing here, but it's very annoying. All right, let me pull up the next one. So this is like a fake baseball player. So this is like an international problem, right? So this guy's saying, New York, I'm not going anywhere. I'm happy to announce I've re-signed with the Yankees for 3 more years. Yeah,
So now they're just kind of using it to spread like fake
rumors, yeah,
news
100%.
and rumors, because it's like this, you know, this baseball player. I mean, I don't follow baseball, so I don't know.
And then we have on the same note, we have a second one that's a fake LeBron James, and he's saying, I'm officially requesting a trade. Thank you, Lakers Nation, for all the support through the years. On to bigger and better things. Like,
well, didn't he left at one point, didn't he? Wasn't
LeBron
he?
James? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't follow. I only follow hockey, so I'm not really the best.
All right, this one is kind of wild because this is a fake verified account that's Twitter. And wait for it, they're running a crypto scam.
That's really funny, actually. Twitter is running a crypto scam. That's pretty, you know, it's funny. Like Eve 6 predicted this. Max from Eve 6, who runs the Eve 6 Twitter account, which is one of the funniest accounts on freaking Twitter.
I love that Twitter account.
I love we should
invite him on the show.
Yeah, Max is great. He'd come on. But yeah, like he like predicted that. And he's like, if someone who says they're a verified Eve 6 Twitter accounts offers you a crypto scam, make sure you say yes unless you're scared of getting rich.
All right, then I wanted to put up this last one just on a note of how widespread this could be. So this guy basically said, it took me less than 25 minutes to set up a fake anonymous Apple ID using a VPN and disposable email, attached a masked debit card to it with the address being Twitter's headquarters, and get a verified account for a prominent figure. Just think what a nation state or bad actor could do.
Yeah, fair. Well, and to kind of, you know, take this into the like longer term thing and the more like kind of policy oriented thing, you know, there's the Times piece that Evan Greer, who's a colleague of mine, she wrote, and it really talks about how this is an example.
Let's pull that up now. Ron,
yeah, let's pull it up now.
It's a great piece, I think.
It is a great piece, and it says Elon Musk is the Lord of Twitter. We are the peasants, which I think is not only a great metaphor for Twitter, but really for like a great metaphor for all of social media and even the internet in a lot of ways, where it's like you kind of just have lords and peasants. And this article also points out, look, there were definitely problems with the way Twitter was run before. It wasn't perfect, but there were also some things that they were doing well. And when we're looking at this autopsy now that we're kind of doing an autopsy as to what they were doing before versus now, you're finding out that Elon's making it significantly worse. I mean, there were, especially for everyone who's crying free speech, free speech, free speech, there was a legal department at Twitter that was committed to
That's right.
First Amendment protections. And at times, when the government asked for certain things, they said no, because they were just like, no, we really want to give people First Amendment rights here on Twitter. So what did Elon do? Did he collaborate with those people? Did he meet with them? Did he say, hey, this is valuable work and we got to find a way to make it even better? No, he fired them. So the people trying to protect free speech, the free speech warrior, fired them.
Yeah. In fact, there's an interesting thing I want to read from the article where they're talking specifically about, hang on. It's kind of a longer article than I thought.
Yeah, it's a long piece.
All right. So, yeah, in less than a week, he's fired top executives, dissolved the company's board of directors, used the site to spread a homophobic lie about the attack on Paul Pelosi, and unilaterally limited employees' access to content moderation tools.
He took a dump in the break room and nobody thought it was funny.
Wait, what? That actually happened?
No, that didn't happen. I mean, not to my knowledge.
I thought you were being serious, dude. I was like, what? I mean I believe it.
I'm going to start an account in an hour that's going to say it happened.
Yeah, it's going to be Elon Musk.
I'm going to shell out $8 real quick.
So, and then it goes on to talk about him laying off the attorneys that were responsible for that. People from marginalized communities face another major obstacle to online free speech. Ubiquitous harassment, threats of violence, and hate-filled content that leads to toxic online spaces where many people do not feel safe enough to express themselves. We're often led to believe that the only solution to this is to demand that digital overlords use their near absolute power more responsibly and do a better job policing harmful and harassing posts. In the short term, pushing for better, more transparent, and more evenly enforced content moderation is a valid harm reduction strategy. I agree with that. But we have to acknowledge the trade-offs. When we ask for for-profit platforms with millions of users to remove more content faster, it inevitably leads to over-removal of legitimate content with the collateral damage disproportionately impacting marginalized people and communities outside of the mainstream. Black Lives Matter organizers documented a pattern of over-removal across major platforms. In the wake of the Dobbs decision, activists fighting for abortion access have reported an uptick in suspensions and censored posts. Automated anti-terrorism filters employed by Twitter and other major platforms systemically suppress content from human rights advocates in Arab and Muslim countries. Platforms will often say that such posts were removed in error, but these systemic errors have a real impact on the ability of marginalized people to express ourselves and be heard.
Yeah, and that's why transparency is so freaking important. And I think every social media platform was and is falling short of that. But I think there's a reason why Twitter was doing a little bit better than Facebook or Instagram was in that department. And now the people
I think they were doing.
They're all gone now. They're all gone now.
They were at least trying to find the balance, right? They were trying to get the balance right. So, and actually, the last her last paragraph is a really good one. Twitter's legal team were some of the staunchest defenders of the First Amendment right to anonymous speech and regularly pushed back against overly broad government demands. One of Musk's first moves was to fire the woman leading that work.
Yeah, that's kind of backwards.
It's kind of backwards, right? Anyway, good piece. Folks, you should read the whole thing. It's really well done. I, in fact, tweeted it out yesterday.
Real quick here to just kind of jump into like the longer term digital rights impact of all this. This just goes, we don't want an internet of, lords and serfs. That's not what we want. Right. It should concern you that a billionaire can just randomly buy a social media platform used by millions of people and do whatever he wants with it. In this case, completely destroy it, which is what he's on the verge of doing. And, with the midterms, the dust is slowly settling. And unfortunately, we are in a place where action needs to happen very, very quickly on a couple things, or they're likely going to fall by the wayside. And to those things are the antitrust bills, that we're hoping for a vote in the lame duck, although it's looking less and less likely. And then, of course, appointing Gigi Sohn to the FCC so that we get net neutrality back. I encourage everyone, go to bidenpromise.us and go to battleforthenet.com and please sign both of those petitions. This is the end game, folks. Like, we really got to throw the Hail Mary here because we're entering the lame duck. And, if Gigi Sohn is not confirmed by the end of the year, who is a pro-net neutrality appointee, she likely won't be confirmed. They've already said, a lot of the Republicans have already said they want it to lapse so that Biden can appoint a more mainstream nominee, whatever that means. She's been doing this type of work for 30 years, but they've
more
said
corporate
that
friendly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So please, we need your help. And if you don't want this to become the norm on the internet, which it already is becoming, a little antitrust in a free and open internet is the first and most important way to start fighting back. So
indeed. And I would say this, if he really wanted to get rid of this peasants and lords system, as he's calling it, what he should do is make verification open to everybody that wanted to give their ID and prove that they were them, and have it be for free. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily think that they should be keeping Twitter verification badges only to, a handful of people. I'm all for expanding that.
Well, and it's not Elon Musk that made that metaphor. It's, but
see,
that's what we're dealing with.
Jordan actually just sent this, which might bring some light to that. It was an exchange earlier right here, if you guys want to take a look.
Oh,
is this the real one?
Is that the real Elon Musk?
This is
Will the real Elon Musk please stand up?
I have to ask. I'm sorry.
Corrupt.
Oh,
all right.
My God.
Far too many corrupt legacy blue verification check marks exist. What did you think was going to happen, Elon? So no choice but to remove legacy blue in coming months. He's already bailing. Oh, man.
What does he mean by corrupt? What does that even mean?
I think he means they're just fake. I think he means they're just
okay,
trolling.
But that's totally not true. He's not. That's totally false. They're not fake.
He's saying he's going to remove anyone who is verified the old way, so it'll only be the $8 way going forward.
Okay, so just so everybody's clear on this, how this happens. So he
genuinely doesn't care about the original verification.
No, he doesn't. So the original verification process. So when I was verified, I got an email like, "Do you want to be verified?" kind of a thing. And then they opened it up where you could apply for it. But you have to give them a copy of your ID and prove that you are you.
Right.
So how could you possibly have fake accounts if that's what they're doing? How does that make sense?
Oh, so he's doing away with, geez.
And under the new system, that's my point. Under the new system, he's point blank saying, no, you don't have to prove to me you're who you are. You just have to pay me. Like, it just doesn't fucking make any sense. By corrupt, does he mean you hold a position politically that's different from mine? By corrupt, does he mean you made fun of me?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought he was referring to the new thing. I didn't realize that he meant like the old way. He's gonna gut. I mean, I'm not surprised, but
I mean, legacy would have to be.
So legacy means like before, but it wasn't called Twitter Blue before. I guess that's why reading that tweet was a little confusing. Here, pull the tweet up again, because the way it reads is
Twitter Blue is what it was called before.
It was always called Twitter Blue. I mean, I thought it was just you were verified.
No. The Twitter Blue was the $2.99 a month that you paid for to edit tweets and upload videos. And so they're hybriding the two together.
Okay.
And so going forward, they're two hybrided.
So it's not just all the old check marks. It's the ones that bought the blue.
Is that what he's saying? It's a very
we actually got a notification because we used the old Twitter Blue to upload longer than 2-minute videos onto Twitter.
Yeah,
and to edit tweets. And so we got a notification that says that's going away. So if we want to keep doing that, we're going to have to subscribe to the $8 thing.
So this is just basically a way for him to get people to pay more then. That's all he's trying to do here. He's trying to get you to pay more.
This is just bizarre. Okay, so
so he thinks with the $8 thing, it's going to get better, basically.
And the $2.99 people aren't going to pay for the $8. Like, I know a lot of verified journalists that were willing to pay the $2.99 because you could upload longer video and it was cheap enough. It made sense, right? So, but if somebody's now saying to you, pay $8 and you get a fake verification versus your real verification, they're like, yeah, I don't want your fake Gucci. So this is a really stupid move on his part. Like he could have continued.
Why
to
buck
take in
the trend now?
I know. Wow. Okay, so okay, let me scroll up to the beginning of this conversation because he has this one pinned, but it's actually part of a longer conversation, so maybe we can figure out.
What a great guy.
So
making his gems easy for us.
Yeah, because I'm not really clear. I'm still not clear on what he's saying here with this tweet. All right, so the girl he's responding to basically says, and let's double check and see if she paid for her check mark, first of all. Let's find out that. No, okay, so she's truly a verified individual. She's I don't know what she does, but she's got an old badge. Okay. Could you fix the weird glitch in the verification badge? When I signed up for Blue to try the new features, it took away my actual verification and now says I'm verified because I signed up for Blue, which is not the case. I've been verified for years. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he's trying to address that. So he's saying far too many corrupt legacy Blue verification check marks exist, so no choice but to remove legacy Blue in coming months. To me, by legacy, he's saying the older accounts.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I don't even think he knows. Like I don't even think he knows exactly what
this could change tomorrow.
Yeah, and well, things are good. I'm going to predict right now, things are going to change.
Shit.
This is temporary.
Wait, let's go down to the rest of the conversation because that's not the end of it. So another verified old school way guy says, Elon, I understand you're trying to make back your initial investment, but you are destroying the platform. This corrupt verification you are referring to is universal across all platforms and does an amazing job of preventing scam. This new one will lead to a scam nightmare. Elon's response to this was $8.
Yeah. So that's basically his way of saying, no, I'm going to let it crash and burn, which I don't think he's going to, I mean, he's going to lose it all. So I am going to predict he is going to sell this. He's going to bail. And he'll make up some kind of excuse. He'll have a PR team help him. He can honestly, you can kind of take the Trump way out and just be like, oh, they didn't want to let me, and the advertisers didn't support me because I'm all about free speech, even though I've acted in the opposite since I had it. But I'm hoping my fans don't notice. Best thing he could do. And I think this is going to be short-lived. He is probably...
it's not sustainable financially. I mean, he's betting on all these crypto boys, edge lords, incels, whoever else, that they're all going to like pony up the $8. A bunch of them probably will, but nobody else is going to stay around for that.
No.
He's going to have attrition of users left and right. The advertisers are not going to come back for that. That's for sure.
Mastodon's one of the most downloaded apps right now.
Yeah.
Mastodon
all right. So
is one of the most downloaded apps
I need to get on that because this is just a sinking ship.
I'm on it. I'm finding.
Right.
I'm at Romplacone. I'm on the Mastodon Green server. Find me. I'm there.
All right.
It's hard to use, but I'm figuring it out.
Well, we have to find something else because unless somebody else buys this company out and fixes it, I think it's done. Put a pitchfork in it. All right. Now, should we move on to Donald Trump meltdown?
Yeah,
because this is pretty epic too.
Yeah.
This is turning into a comedy hour instead of a news hour. Let's be fair. All right. So I want to pull up Donald Trump's Truth Social. I just decided to pull up the entire thing because it's just one epic meltdown tweet after another. He's just been going on instead of taking screenshots. So let's get that up, Colin, so we have a good laugh at this. All right, there we are. All right. So Clark County, Nevada has a corrupt voting system. Be careful, Adam. As do many places in our soon-to-be third world country. Arizona even said by the end of the week, they want more time to cheat. Kari Lake must win. So this sort of plays back to me about that notion that last week we played that video from Ali Alexander, where he was basically saying, he's the guy that started the Stop the Steal movement. And he was basically saying, well, if we lose, I consider that to be stolen. If I like the outcome, then it's not stolen. Like it's not based on reality. Yeah, it's not based on reality.
You're just a preemptive reactionary. Yeah, and then Trump is just like, it's kind of funny that he was just flailing, talking about how, oh, the media's lying, all of my picks, most of my picks won. And it's just like his continued theme of like, oh, the media is mean to me.
Right.
He even complains about the fake media is mean to me. And I'll tell you what, from a thematic standpoint, I really despise it. And I've despised it for years. And the reason is because, now when you really talk about the problems of our media and you talk about it where it's like, okay, it's very problematic that a handful of corporations controls news and information in this country because that's conflict of interest 101. Now you get lumped into, just some narcissist plutocrat who thinks they're not nice enough to him. And it's like, no, those are two very different things. Two very
billionaires.
Very
billionaires are destroying the world. That is what I'm saying. All right.
Yeah. Then they're doing it in a hurry too.
And they're doing it in a hurry, faster than we can imagine. All right, let's go to the next one. For those many people that are being fed the fake narrative from the corrupt media that I'm angry about the midterms, don't believe it. I am not angry at all. Did a great job. I wasn't the one running. And am very busy looking into the future. Remember, I am a stable genius. Despite, let's just keep going here for a second. Despite
go ahead, just read it.
Okay. Despite having picked so many winners, I have to put up with the fake news. For me, Fox News was always gone, even in 2015-16 when I began my journey. But now they're really gone. Such an opportunity for another media outlet to make an absolute fortune and do good for America. Let's see what happens. Then this one, 219 wins against 16 losses in the general election. And yet the fake news writes only unrecognizable junk. No wonder they are all doing so badly. What 219 wins, Ron? What is he talking about?
I guess he's saying that he made all those predictions or endorsements and they all came true. I mean, that's
But where are the 219 wins? Is he counting like seats that were not even up for election? Like, what is he talking about? I don't understand.
I think he probably just scrolled through and every time he saw like a Republican or something, he was just like, yeah, that's me. I did that. I mean, that's my guess anyway. I mean, it's like he's kind of just void of all reality in that statement. And it really is something to try to like be inside the brain. Like I can't imagine.
I can't. Yeah, I
can't imagine being like Fox News is not conservative enough for me. Fox News is not. I know, right? Fox News is so far gone. And again, it's just all about
Tucker Carlson is problematic. I mean, really, Donald? Like, really? Like the white genocide replacement theory guy is your? I don't know, man. It's just really insane. So what he wants to see on every network now is One America News, right? Or Nick Fuentes's.
Well, what he wants to see. What he wants to see is just anyone being nice to him. It doesn't matter who it is. I mean, literally, like, let's be honest. Like, he just wants to see people just being like, "You did so good, Donald. You freaking nailed it. Oh my god, every win is because of you, and every loss is because they just weren't nice enough to you." And he'd be like, "All right, that's accurate news now." I mean, again, it's like
Trump TV is coming to
the theme. Oh, that was his goal all along. I mean, the whole theme of this show so far is just like how narcissists with money can ruin everything.
Right. And have absolutely complete meltdowns in public that are just cringe and embarrassing. And apparently they don't realize it. All right, here we go with this one. There is a fake story being promulgated by third-rate reporter Maggie Hageman of the failing New York Times that I am blaming our great former First Lady, Melania, and Sean Hannity, that I was angry with. They're pushing me to endorse Dr. Oz. First of all, Oz is a wonderful guy who really worked hard and was a very good candidate. But he was long in the race before I ever endorsed him, and they had nothing to do with it. He was not a denier. His mistake. Okay, so he was not an election denier. That's his mistake. And I was not at all angry. Fake news. Like,
so it's like, if Oz would have been behind me more, he probably would have won. I mean,
that's the delusional thing here. And then he's going on about cool. 219. He repeats himself again of the 219 wins against 16 losses in the general election. Like he's repeating himself now. Anyway, I think we've seen enough.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered it. Like, okay, dude. I mean, and the sad thing is there are a lot of problems with the New York Times. There's a ton of problems with Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC. I mean, but
no, there is. But it's not what he thinks it is. Yeah.
Right. It's yeah. So cool. Good job. Way to go.
All right. So it's not all bad news, folks. It's not all bad news at all. I think the midterms thus far, we're still waiting for a lot of returns to be completed. So we don't know who all the winners are yet. But I do want to point out a handful of ballot measures that have passed in the country that are very good news, in my opinion. So number one, in January, the minimum wage in Nebraska is going to be raised to $10.50 from $9, and then it'll be increased $1.50 every year until 2016 because they did pass a ballot measure for the $15 minimum wage. Now, we could have a conversation that $15 isn't high enough; it needs to be higher. But this is a win, in my opinion. We couldn't get it passed on the federal level, so Nebraska put it on their state, and it passed overwhelmingly.
It is a win. It is not enough. I mean, I think both those things can be true at the same time. It can be a win in the sense that we are starting to go after living wages in a real, tangible way. But it can also be the reality that, gee, when we started this fight, $15 an hour was enough to survive on in some places. That's not the case anymore.
Right.
You know, now it's like when you say fight for 15, it's like, well, that's almost symbolic at this point, because the fight for 15 has been going on
for too many years.
Yeah, for so many years that now it's not, you know, like, I mean, I feel like the minimum wage should be at least like $25 an hour now.
Oh, 100%.
And, you know,
absolutely,
at least. And so yeah,
I agree with you there.
That's kind of where we're at, I think. It's like, yeah, it's technically a win, but, you know, we still have a long way to go.
We still have a long way to go. All right. I wanted to point out that DC has now passed an initiative, a ballot measure that will force restaurants to pay the full minimum wage. So basically what they're ending is a sub minimum wage in DC's. In the past, you would have a tip credit system where some of the people that work in restaurants would make less than minimum wage because their tips would be credited back as part of. Yeah,
the tips were
right.
You'd make like $2 an hour, but you're getting your tips. So if the restaurant's not busy, you're not making any money. Yeah,
it's fucked up. So this was passed in DC by 74% of the electorate. So again, overwhelming support for this. It's gone. So that could be a ground zero for it spreading to the rest of the country. We don't have that here in California. We have a minimum wage, but there are still other states that do have this. They did try to have this passed federally with the Raise the Wage Act, and that got stalled in Congress, of course. So what I'm seeing here is local municipalities and states picking up the slack where the federal government is failing to pass these workers' rights initiatives. So this is a good thing. The next one I want to bring up is collective bargaining rights being added to the Constitution in Illinois. So Amendment 1 has passed overwhelmingly. This would basically amend the state constitution to say employees have a fundamental right to organize and bargain collectively. So this is an affront to right to work state laws. It's an absolute way to increase union membership and make it safe for workers to feel like they can unionize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, these are all wins, you know, these are all significant wins throughout the country. And you know, it's refreshing to see, because a lot of times it's refreshing to see. You know, and sometimes this stuff gets shot down later, but like these are some significant ballot measures that are very, you know, like kind of status quo shifting. So
absolutely. One more I wanted to bring up is in South Dakota, where they voted to expand Medicaid. So this isn't a deep red state. This was I'm sure it was tough for the organizers to get this pushed through, but they succeeded. 56% voted yes. So not a massive majority, but enough where it's a win. So the state constitution is now amended to include Medicaid benefits to adults between the ages of 18 to 65 with incomes below 133% of the federal poverty line. I think this is another win too.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. Those are some good ones.
There's some good ones. Summer Lee.
Let's go to Summer Lee. So we have a video. So Summer Lee got elected in Pennsylvania. Well, she held a state related seat, and now she is joining Congress. And basically, they're referring to her as another squad member. And let's go to the video first.
Let's go to the video first. Yeah.
Representative-elect Lee, I want to congratulate you on your victory. I was just reading a bit about you, and this is how weird history is. Not only are you the first Black woman elected to the United States House of Representatives of Pennsylvania, but 4 years ago, you were the first Black woman elected to Pennsylvania's State House. That seems like that's very belated. But tell us what went into your victory. You beat a guy named Mike Doyle, who was trying to replace a guy named Mike Doyle from the other party. Tricky on their part.
Yeah, that's their ploy. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I was the first Black woman from Southwest PA, which is a large portion of PA, but I don't want to take credit when we have a lot of sisters doing things in the State House. But, you know, our victory really was grassroots effort, our movement spaces that has just worked for years to really center, you know, working class people and common sense pieces of policy that folks care about that expands the electorate, be it movement, criminal justice reform, housing, environmental justice especially. But we've built and we've organized and we've brought in more people. And at the end of the day, those people came out and voted.
And what do you want to do in Congress? What are your goals?
Yeah, I mean, I think that right now we have such an urgent moment, right? There's a reason why Black women have never been represented from Pennsylvania. And that is such a lacking perspective in not just Congress, it's a lacking perspective everywhere. But when we have that urgency of lived experience, right? Folks who actually have experienced what it's been to be working poor, what has experienced being in housing insecure, we just bring a different urgency. So those are the issues that I want to work on. I want to work on the issues that impact my community first and foremost, right? Be it housing justice, be it really environmental justice here, where we have some of the worst air quality in the nation. I want to talk about environmental racism. I want to talk about racial justice. I want to talk about a living wage and make sure that we're passing the PRO Act so that working class folks have rights on the job. This is work that a lot of folks are doing. I'm here kind of as a part of the cavalry, but to bring in some reinforcements because we need louder voices and we need people who are going to fight with every tool we have these days.
So I want to pose a question here. So the problem with the squad is that they're not acting as a unit. That's the problem. They're not acting as a block, and that's how you lose the leverage you have. Because when you act as a block, well, then people know, well, we have to go to them to get what we want. If we don't give them X, they're not going to give us Y.
Strength in numbers. Yeah,
that's how politics works, especially when you're outnumbered and especially when you're in a duopoly. They're not doing that.
That's how collective bargaining works, period, right?
Right. So they're not doing that. That's a freaking problem. They need a leader, and they need someone who is more concerned with building those coalitions and using that leverage than they are with Instagram streams. My question is Summer Lee, is there a chance, and I don't know the answer to this, but is there a chance Summer Lee could be that leader? I think that's the thing that folks should be asking and wondering. I don't know a ton about Summer Lee. But I have a lot of friends and colleagues still in Pittsburgh because it's my hometown. And a lot of them are excited about her. I don't know if she'll be that leader or not, but if she were to be that leader, that could be big, because I think that if someone really stepped up and led, then they would have to start acting as a unit.
More cohesive,
and the ones who don't, they'd be more cohesive. And the ones who didn't get into that, they'd be the ones where it's just like, okay, so you're not really looking to do what you said you were going to do.
I think it's a fair question, Ron. Obviously, it remains to be seen. But I do believe that she has held some progressive positions, at least when she was campaigning. And we know that the Progressive Caucus isn't entirely full of progressives. There's a lot of moderates and sort of corporate Democrats within that caucus. Yeah. So it would make sense if you really want to, influence the Congress, influence the Democratic Party in a way to pull them to the left, you would need a more cohesive group that would be willing to come together as a block and stand up to Nancy Pelosi when they felt like they needed to, or Chuck Schumer when they felt like they needed to. And you're right, that is absolutely not happening right now. Bernie Sanders endorsed Summer Lee. He actually went out on a limb and, made a tweet about how AIPAC was, going after her because she's a progressive, right? And so, that conversation always ends up becoming just a fireball, because AIPAC is, that's the Israeli lobbyist group, and they don't represent Jewish folks. They represent the state of Israel, right? So, but there's always a benefit for them to make a conflation that they represent Jewish folks, because then it sort of Teflon coats them from criticism, right? If you attack us, you're being anti-Semitic. So, Summer's sin was that she had the audacity to say that Palestinians are entitled to have rights too. And I agree with her on that. And I think you do too. And I know Bernie Sanders agrees with that position. And so, he took a lot of flack from that. And it's very, it's really annoying to me because, he's also Jewish. And when you get into a position where you're calling somebody that's Jewish anti-Semitic, it's not a good look. And that's sort of what it sort of where it kind of sort of devolves to. We saw the same thing happen with Adam Levine, right? So they went after him. He's Jewish. So there's people need to understand this. The Jewish community is not monolithic. Not all Jewish folks are Zionists. They don't all support the work that AIPAC does because they see them as a influential lobbying group. So, it's complicated, but so, Bernie Sanders endorsed her. She has spoken out for Palestinian rights. She is for Medicare for all. So the things that she has
Well,
campaigned
no,
on.
she's for the right thing. It's just my question is like, will that translate into leadership? There's a
Yeah, I
lot of,
don't know.
yeah, I mean, we don't know. It's too soon to tell.
Too soon to
But
tell.
I would love to see that happen. In her response there, I would have liked to have heard a few more concrete things. I would have liked if she would have said Medicare for all. But what I really liked is that she is being very outspoken about environmental racism. And I can tell you, in
Yeah.
a place like
Pennsylvania,
Pennsylvania,
that's huge.
that's not easy. That's
No.
not easy to do. I mean, Pennsylvania is a place where a lot of people don't have the courage to even go up against fracking. I mean, John Fetterman backpedaled on it. Who knows
Yep.
where he stands? First, he wasn't for it. Now, apparently, he's for it. So, he wasn't really, he didn't really hold the line on that one. But Summer Lee is going after environmental racism as a whole, which in that area, I mean, that's a pretty
It's
bold
huge.
thing to do. So
Yeah.
I hope that really translates into, what she'll do when she's in Congress. Here's
Yeah.
hoping.
Here's hoping, and we'll have to keep an eye on that. But I do think the potential is definitely there. Let's put it that way.
Cool.
Cool. All right. So do you have any dates to plug before we switch over to Right Wing Insanity Report?
Yeah, why don't we do, I'll tell people where to find me, and then we'll do some super chats, and then we'll do Right Wing Insanity. How's that sound?
Oh, sounds good to me.
All right. So, folks, you can follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone and Mastodon Ron Placone. And I do have some cool tour dates coming up. January 28th, I'll be in Tucson, Arizona. That's not just a stand-up show. That's also a screening of my short film, Loner. So it's going to be a fun night. You can get tickets now. And if you use the promo code Lucy at checkout, Lucy, Lucy, you get a discount on tickets. So it makes a wonderful holiday gift. January 28th, Tucson, Arizona. February 10th, I'll be doing my first show of a 3-show residency in Los Angeles at the Glendale Room. And February 17th and 18th, I'll be in San Diego. And there's also Los Angeles dates in April and May. RonPlacone.com for all those tickets.
All righty then.
So should we let's do
Read some super chats. Yes. Woohoo,
so
super chats.
Double K.
Thank you
so
K.
much. D Nord says, cool, Summer sounds like she means it. I hope so. I hope so too. Absolutely. And then D Nord, you also say Status Coup, #1 indie real news. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much.
That.
Thank you, Double K. You all help keep this show on the air, and you fund independent, on-the-ground journalism.
All right. Now it's time for Right Wing Insanity Report. All right. So today on Right Wing Insanity Report, I have a guest coming on that is going to talk about Christian fascism, Christian nationalism, which is absolutely on the rise in the country, and it's very much connected to political movements. So we're going to get deep into that. But before we do the interview, I want to go through some of the headlines and crazy videos that came out this week with Ron, as we like to do. The first one up is a MAGA pastor. His name is Shane Vaughn, and he's going to explain to us what the red wave in the midterm elections are. So let's play that clip.
That's why there was no red wave. Abortion changed everything. And even though all the polls were showing that the economy was the main issue, abortion is a religious issue. And religion creates more passion than anything in the world. If you don't believe it, go to a church meeting where there's a debate going on. So religion creates passion. And there's a religion of demons that loves abortion. That religion of pro-abortion showed up. It was bigger than anybody understood because of the passion that those demonic powers create in their church of heathens that love to kill babies. Now, that's why there was no red wave. Abortion. Had it not been for the abortion issue, I promise you, the whole country would be red today. What happened in Pennsylvania? Anybody that could vote for that monster, Uncle Fester, proves to me the power of demonic activity in the world today. That's the only way you could vote for that man. That's it. And those demons did show up, and those demons do have power over this earth.
I mean, he's technically not wrong. I just agree with his designation. I disagree with his designation of everybody who is pro-choice is a demon. I'm pretty sure I'm not a demon. Last time I
am not
checked.
a demon. So he's right that I will give him this. He's right that
I mean, maybe when I'm shredded on the guitar, I'm a freaking demon. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not that good. I'm not that good. I'm a demon in the bedroom, folks. I'm probably not there either. Probably not. But like, dare to dream. Dare to dream. Yeah. I don't know. I think that but he's right that abortion.
He's right that it's a religious issue. Beyond that, he's crazy making. So everybody that supports abortion rights is a demon is a ridiculous argument. I love that he called Fetterman Uncle Fester.
Very original.
Very original.
Calling a bald guy Uncle Fester.
Demons, y'all. Demons.
Brilliant. I am a demon, but not because I'm pro-choice. I'm a demon because I'm a ginger. We're all demons. But
all right. So the next. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like he's right that abortion did. I think that did tip the scale. I think it would have been a slaughter otherwise. You know, I mean, I think that was
yes,
a huge thing.
yes, and in fact, that is what I was saying the night of the election on our live stream. That I think all the polls were underestimating how angry women were about having their rights taken away from them. They were giving it very little credence, and I felt that women were going to come out in droves and vote, against having more rights taken away, even if that meant voting for a Democrat they didn't particularly like. So I do think we even saw some Republican women doing that very thing. So
yeah, and so this guy, women are demons to this guy. Go eat his pizza.
And he wonders why he can't get laid. All right. So next video, I got to go back to Nick Fuentes again because he's just on a roll with crazy lately.
So wait, what is his deal? What does he do?
Nick Fuentes he started the group
like a pizza shirt.
America First. America First is basically, well, it's what it is. It's a far right group. America First, Groyper. So he's kind of a neo-Nazi. He also has a website called Cozy TV where he streams a lot of extreme content, like a lot of right-wing extremists have live streams on there. It's like the YouTube for neo-Nazis. Let's put it that way. So this particular live stream, also about the failed red wave and Twitter. Okay. He has Baked Alaska on as one of the guests. So Baked Alaska is a neo-Nazi from California. People might remember him from when he got banned from Twitter. He went to this parking lot, and I can't remember if it was a Del Taco or a Taco Bell or something, and was live streaming, having this total meltdown about it. Anyway, I'll have to pull that video up for a different day because it's pretty funny. But let's play this clip.
Basically, I don't give a fuck about the elections anymore, and I just want to get back. I'm not like I went and I pissed, and I'm like, dude, Fetterman can win. Fuck all this shit. I don't just give me my fucking Twitter back. I'm moving to Russia. Fuck elections. They're all gay. So that's my take. That's where I'm at.
I want my Twitter back too. I would rather have my Twitter back than a Senate majority at this point.
Oh, I mean, like, I came into this, like, so optimistic, like, woo, red hurricane, and slowly got battered down by reality, and then I'm just like, dude, fuck this shit. It's all rigged.
All right, so the good news is that
elections are so gay, bro. Elections are just so gay. Dude, it's so funny when they say and tweet stuff like that. Like, who's that one guy? There's that super conservative Australian guy that always tweets. You know who I'm talking about? He's like I need more information.
There's a lot of Australian conservatives, so
no, I understand that, but it's like he's in the U.S. and I think he has some tie to Trump, but he always tweets just the most ridiculous. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if like this guy turns out to be like a parody in the end, because like he always tweets
you're just like, is this guy serious? Yeah,
ridiculous stuff. And like the other day he tweeted something like he's like, the alpha males are going to Hooters with the guys and the betas are having dinner with their wives, and it's like, okay, so the betas are like hanging out with a woman who loves them, and like, it's so funny, bro. Is it gay to eat dinner with your wife? Yeah, it's pretty gay, bro.
They're just silliness. So, but the good news is that they care less about a Senate majority than they do their Twitters. So, I mean, that's good news. Maybe they're finally
they're concerned
going to
about
stop running for office. I mean, that'd be great. All right, let's go to one more that I pulled up for the week. They're stealing everything. This is Mike Pillow Guy Lindell. So let's play
classic guy.
Mike, tell us what's going on.
Well, it's kind of what I expected. They're stealing everything. Just in Herschel Walker's race alone, over 200,000 votes have been injected into his opponent to get to this runoff stage. They stole the governor's race with Mastriano in Pennsylvania. We've seen an early injection of 90,000 votes by the computers. At Kerry Lake, they're trying to steal her.
So again, it's
What
the
was
same
that frickin'
rhetoric.
painting behind him, by the way?
Oh,
there was a painting
the
of like
lion
a
with the
tiger.
Jesus Christ.
What the hell is that?
It's a lion and a Jesus Christ.
No, I know that's what it is, but what
we
the
are
hell
lions,
is
not
that?
sheep, Ron. We are
This
lions,
is-
not sheep.
If
Not
there
lambs,
is a
sorry.
if there is a
Lions,
more
lambs.
ridiculous timeline than this ever throughout human history, I pity anyone who lived through it.
There's
no freaking way. We are the most ridiculous fucking timeline in all of human history. I mean, he's just making shit up about just like there were all they. I mean, look, I know enough people in Pennsylvania. I could tell you, there's no way everyone thought that Mastriano guy was a freaking lunatic because he is. No one even. I mean, the other guy was just a blank suit Democrat. But people were like, we're not going to vote for this freaking lunatic. So we'll go with this blank suit. And that's what happened. And that's usually what happens with the governorship in Pennsylvania anyway, a lot of the time. So, yeah. And he's just making the computers did. There were all kinds of votes from the computers.
Right.
You mean people showed up to the polls and pushed a button on a freaking computer, Mike Littell? And this is what's sad because, again, we talked about this on election night. There are a lot of real election integrity issues on this in this country. There are real ones. But when you hear absurd pre-reactionary bullshit like this, it makes those conversations hollow. Because when you bring it up, you're like, oh my God, are you like the MacLeod? No, we're the fucking real one. We're talking about the purges of the voter rolls. We're talking about redistricting. We're talking about gerrymandering. We're talking about flaws in the machines that are actually real and calculated and have been exposed via real investigations, and not these bullshit ones, via warnings that the secretaries of states have ignored. Not Mike Lindell making shit up while he's behind a Jesus lion fuck painting. Like, so it's a bummer, you know? I mean, it's funny, but it's a funny bummer because now it's like, well, we can't have a constructive conversation about a real issue.
No, it is really problematic.
Because they took it to absurd fuckface land.
No, they do. And you're right about, like, for example, the purging of the voter rolls would be a prime example of that. The same people that are crying about stolen elections and election fraud are the same people that are purging legitimate voters off of voter rolls. You know, one example is they find the guy's name, Jose Garcia, and there's 200 guys named Jose Garcia, which is an entirely believable thing because it's a common name. If you bother to look at the middle names, you'll see that many of them are different, but they're going to purge all 288 Jose Garcias and say that it's one guy and that the other, 278 or so are just fake votes, right? And it's all bullshit, right? It's absolute bullshit. But this is the post-truth America that we are living in right now. And part of the problem is these folks are so committed to these beliefs because they live in echo chambers where they're only communicating with people that have extreme viewpoints or views very similar to theirs. So they don't hear anything else, which is why it's such a shock to them that they lost an election, right? How could this be? Everybody I know voted for him. Everybody voted for him, right? So it's just
the computer voted 90,000 times. We didn't factor in the 90,000 computer voting thing that the computer did.
So many levels of messed up. All right, we have a couple more super chats before I bring in the interview with Jennifer Cohn. So Jennifer Cohn works for Bucks Beacon, actually in Pennsylvania, Bucks County Beacon, and she's doing a lot of research in the area of covering Christian fascism. So she's going to do a deep dive with me. Stick around for that. But before we do, we have smash that like button. Yes. And before we do, we have two. Ron, Observer wants to know $2. Thank you. What is your Mastodon handle? Your Mastodon handle.
It's just at Romplacone. I'm Romplacone, and the server I'm on is Mastodon Green. So and I've also tweeted it out.
Do you need to have the server to find somebody? How does
No,
that
I
work?
think you can just find by searching the name.
Okay.
But sometimes it's a little fluky. But yeah, I mean, you should be able to find me just Romplacone. But if you follow me on Twitter, I have tweeted my Mastodon handle a few times. So yeah, please find me and let's connect. I'm still learning. I'm still learning and I'm still new. But yeah, my
and
Mastodon
then we
handle.
have, I think it's is it pounds? 5.99 pounds from DOS.
Yeah, I think isn't that euro?
I don't know. It's too far away from me. I need my glasses to read that.
I had to kind of lean into. I'm pretty sure that's euro.
Am I too late for the Status Lou steak? Yes, Status Lou. Yes, we haven't had any Status Lou today, unfortunately. He was not with us earlier.
He's still sleeping.
But he's still sleeping and recovering from Pennsylvania trip. All right, so Jennifer Cohn, let's play that interview. Stick around to learn a little bit about the rise of Christian fascism and how actually pretty scary it is. Tina Desiree Berg reporting for Status Coup News. This week on Right Wing Insanity Report, we are speaking to investigative journalist and writer Jennifer Cohn, who writes at the Bucks Beacon, among others. I wanted to have you on the show today to talk about the increase that we're seeing in Christian nationalism, Christian fascism, theocracy in general, because its connections to politics is increasing, not just under Trump, but in general. And they are going for more power grabs, I think, beyond what we've seen with Roe versus Wade. And this is an area that you have gone in depth on in your reporting. So welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on to talk with us about this.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So right off the bat, I want to talk about the Johnson Amendment. This is probably something a lot of folks don't know about. It's basically what stops a 501c3 from being able to endorse a political candidate. For obvious reasons, this is something that the Christian right wants to get rid of. I would actually say probably some other nonprofits do. I want to play a video, though, of a specific group discussing this and how Trump was making a promise of working on getting rid of the Johnson Amendment. Can we play that, Colin?
When Mr. Trump was first running for office, we went to New York for a pastor's luncheon that he spoke at. And I was still on the fence about him at that time, but he said some things. And he talked about being in his office in New York with some pastors. They looked out the window. He said, those people are more free to speak than you are. Mm-hmm. And then he talked about getting rid of the Johnson Amendment. Yeah. And I thought, I've never heard any politician say that ever before. He also said, we're going to start saying Merry Christmas again. So that really got me when he did that. And so we are at a point where there is truly an awakening that is taking place. And the awakening, we talk about an awakening. Right. We talk about an awakening taking place in the world. But listen, the awakening has to take place in the church. Amen. With us. That's where it begins. That's where it starts.
And again, I want to encourage everyone watching, keep your...
I'd say also, I want to mention, in addition to that, in February 2017, Trump at the National Prayer Breakfast had this to say. This is a quote. He wants to get rid of and totally destroy the Johnson Amendment and allow our representatives of faith to speak freely and without fear of retribution. What kind of danger does this pose for our democracy?
Well, I think it's incredibly dangerous if we want to maintain the separation of church and state, obviously, which is already, I think, under a great deal of strain and threat, because the truth is a lot of these, organizations that are calling themselves C3s they did overtly support Trump. Mm-hmm. A lot of them did. And that's what we're seeing with the movement that you mentioned that I've been covering in so much detail, the New Apostolic Reformation. It's a rapidly accelerating extremist Christian movement. And it's really been underreported, which I believe is a problem, because you can't very well as a society push back against something that doesn't have a name. And that's exactly why I think some of these organizations like to maintain a veil of secrecy.
Right. So Victory Outreach, which is what that video clip is from, what is their relationship to the movement?
Well, I've got to tell you, the person who posted that, she posted it last night, is Gal Suburban, who does a lot of open source research, as I do. on extremism. And I actually just took her word for it that these were the 7 M's, which is the Seven Mountains movement.
Seven Mountains.
News
Okay.
people. I actually had been meaning to ask her who specifically those two people were. But if she says that they're with them, then I'm sure that they are. And the meeting that she was talking about was in New York that they were talking about in the clip was in New York in June 2016. And that was a meeting that was organized by sleepy Dr. Ben Carson, who was in the Department of Housing and Urban Development with Trump, which people didn't really understand that because he was a retired surgeon who had no experience in housing and urban development and no apparent interest.
Yeah.
But the reason for that is that he is also a major player in this network behind the scenes, regardless of his ability to invigorate a crowd, which he seems to lack. He is very revered within these Christian extremist circles that overlap with the NAR movement. And so specifically, he's, I guess you don't say that you're in the family, you say you're a friend of the family. The family is the Fellowship Foundation that was the basis for a series, popular Netflix series and 2 books by Jeff Sharlet. So the people who organized it were Ben Carson and an organization, a nonprofit called United in Purpose, which really is their express purpose of United in Purpose, according to one of the guys who founded it, a convicted embezzler turned Christian extremist named Bill Dallas, is to achieve or move toward the 7 mountains of influence, which that is what the NAR promotes. And that's the New Apostolic Reformation. And what the 7 mountains are, the most important ones are government, education, and media. Those are the ones I focus on. I think they have the family and pretty much all pillars of society. And the idea is that Christians have a mandate from God to exert, to control all of those mountains of society. So that's okay. And so they organized that meeting with Trump, and it was a closed door meeting. So it was very interesting to hear from somebody who was there what they talked about.
Right. So just so people can understand what all these terms mean, I think it might be a little bit confusing for people that have not been reporting on this. So 7 mountains. So dominionism. Would you say that fell into that? And what exactly is dominionism?
Yes. So dominionism is the concept that Christians have a mandate from God to control the world in order for Jesus to return to earth. And so that's dominionism generally. The 7 mountains mandate has grown increasingly popular across all Christian movements, but it really found its origins in what's called the New Apostolic Reformation. And I guess there were 2 religious leaders in the 1970s who apparently had the same vision at the same time, which had to do with these 7 mountains. And subsequently, like years later, a NAR leader named Lance Wallnau, who's very full-on MAGA, full-on pro-Trump, very political, overtly political. Yeah. He seized on this and saw it as sort of a marketing strategy for dominionism. And so what it does is it just, it encourages, it is a form of dominionism, but it's also like a strategy for it because it encourages members of the church to not try to achieve dominion from within the church, but to actually leave the church and go and invade. Those are the types of words that he uses when he discusses it. Go invade each of these mountains and figure out which mountain would be an appropriate mountain for you to invade, whether it's government or media or something else. Education is a big mountain. And so, but it started in the NAR and then it spread like wildfire across all of Christian extremist movements.
Right. So these extremists, their end goal is, I understand that the second coming of Christ is what they're working towards, but I would say in the interim, their end goal is to have more control over the political sphere and also law of the land. Why do you think a switch flip there? Because previously you wouldn't see Christians basically running out there saying, no, our law, our theocracy is what freedom equals. That's what American freedom is. And you see them making these sort of bizarre arguments now. Where do you think the origin of that and why has it spread?
Well, I think that they were doing it all along behind closed doors. And
I see.
But they got a little bit greedy this election cycle, a little bit cocky, a little cocky, I think. And they started saying it more publicly. And with social media being as it is, and so many people, for example, on Twitter, it was able to gain it, to bring more exposure to it. So for example, there was a big Christian revival event, a NAR Christian revival event in Georgia in July. And they have these events that are basically like rock concerts. There's this whole world I didn't even know existed until July, basically. And they've got the neon lights and they have musicians and packed stadium, like fully packed stadium. And then the one in Georgia, they had these 4 men standing on stage with like a neon jumbotron behind them. And they start reciting this decree that's very appalling and arrogant to someone like me who.
We actually have that video.
Because that was a game changer for me.
In fact, we have that video. So let's go ahead and play that so people can see what you're talking about.
Okay, fantastic.
As a patriot of faith, I attest my allegiance first and foremost to the kingdom of God and the Great Commission. Secondly, I agree to be a watchman over our nation concerning its people and their rights for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Whereas we, the church, are God's governing body on the earth. Whereas we have been given legal power from heaven and now exercise our authority. Whereas we are God's ambassadors and spokespeople over the earth. Whereas through the power of God, we are the world influencers. Whereas because of our covenant with God, we are equipped and delegated by Him to destroy every attempted advance of the enemy. We make our declarations. We decree that America's executive branch of government will honor God and defend the Constitution. We decree that our legislative branch, Congress, will write only laws that are righteous and constitutional. We decree that our judicial system will issue rulings that are biblical and constitutional. We declare that we stand against wokeness, the occult, and every evil attempt against our nation. We declare and we now take back our God-given freedoms according to our Constitution. We declare that we take back influence at the local level in our communities. We decree that we take back and permanently control positions of influence and leadership in each of the 7 mountains. We decree that the blood of Jesus governs and protects our nation. It protects and separates us from God. We declare that our nation is energy dependent. We declare that America is strong spiritually, financially, militarily, and technologically. We decree that evil carries no power, authority, or rights in our land nor over our people. We decree that we will operate in unity, going beyond denominational lines in order to accomplish the purposes of God for our nation. And we decree that America shall be saved. We know this country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. We know the truth, therefore we stand for truth and will never be deceived. We will never stop fighting. We will never, ever give up or give in. We will take our country back. We will honor the one true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. America shall be saved. Now give it praise. Wow. I like that. The
don't even know where to begin with how disturbing that particular clip is, starting with they have legal power from heaven,
Right.
destroying our enemies. We're founded on, Judeo-Christian beliefs, not a separation of church and state. I mean, and there's a large crowd there. This is not a small group.
No, and they held these events in multiple states, and at least they always had large crowds. I'd say at least as large in one of the other states that they did, and maybe a little smaller in another. But no, they felt this movement has really taken off under the radar of the mainstream media. And, frankly, I don't know of any large corporate, NBC News type of media outlet that has ever uttered the word dominionism or New Apostolic Reformation. All of those men, so there were actually 5 men on stage. 2 of them, Lance Wallnau and Dutch Sheets, are very high profile. Sheets, yeah. He has a brother named Tim Sheets as well, who's also in the movement. But they're big leaders.
We should circle back around and talk about Dutch Sheets and his pine tree flag in a second. But
yeah, Wallnau, I actually think was the most politically active of the group. The other 2 are Hank Kuhneman and Mario Murillo. Mario later in that same event did a faith healing, like an old style revival faith healing, where people came up, on stage, and he cures them of whatever it is that ails them, supposedly. Marjorie Taylor Greene was at that same event, by the way. So from Georgia, because it was a Georgia event, and they pray over her. The 4 men stand on stage and they pray over her.
Wow.
So they have the entire event still posted, I think, or at least they did until recently, on Flashpoint, which is a television show on the Victory Network, which is run by another Christian fanatic named Kenneth Copeland, who has his own ministry. So yeah, there's a lot to be said about that. But I think what was such a game changer is they were very express in their intentions to destroy the separation of church and state. And number 2, it showed that they have a massive following, which I think a lot of people, certainly I had no idea. And that was why it was such a game changer. But most people in the replies, I still didn't know who they were. Most people in the replies didn't know who they were either. And one guy, Bruce Wilson, had been studying this group for years and warning about them. And I saw him say that it was the New Apostolic Reformation.
All I can tell you is that I'm very proud to have Pastor John Hagee's support. He has support and respect throughout the nation.
So think about this. I will send fishers and I will send hunters. A fisher is someone who entices you with a bait. How many of you know who Theodore Herzl was? How many of you don't have a clue who he was? Woo! Sweet God. Theodore Herzl is the father of Zionism. He was a Jew that at the turn of the 19th century said, this land is our land. God wants us to live there. So he went to the Jews of Europe and said, I want you to come and join me in the land of Israel. So few went. Herzl went into depression. Those who came founded Israel. Those who did not went through the hell of the Holocaust. Then God sent a hunter. A hunter is someone who comes with a gun and he forces you. Hitler was a hunter. And the Bible says, Jeremiah writing, they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill out of the holes of the rocks, meaning there's no place to hide.
So then I looked into their social media posts and things, and I saw that they were working with Michael Flynn, and that who works with Roger Stone, who has ties to the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, and that was terrifying. And that's when I did my first piece on it, was seeing that they worked with Michael Flynn. I thought, this is a 5-alarm fire. People really need to know.
Yeah. So what was the ultimate relationship with Michael Flynn?
So within the movement, these leaders within the movement, they have separate, probably separate 501c3s, but they network together and they support each other. That's kind of part of their thing, so that each of them has these massive followers. Their ministries are often largely online and or at these mega churches. But there's another leader in the NAR named Steve Strang, who runs Charisma News, which is a major charismatic Christian publication, and they sponsored Flynn's Reawaken America tour. And and I don't think anyone knew that. Even after I published my article, I kept seeing things about the Reawaken America tour, and nobody looked to see, or apparently saw my article, that it was sponsored by Charisma News, and Steve Strang is the NAR.
Okay, interesting. So, obviously, there's a massive crossover here with the Trump campaign. You mentioned Dutch Sheets a second ago. I want to go back and talk about him and his movement for a second. So, people that have seen a lot of the video of the January 6th insurrection, and not just that, but other events, Stop the Steal rallies across the country and other Trump rallies, you probably have noticed at one point or another and wondered what it was. They have a white flag that has a green pine tree on it, and it has a John Locke quote, right? And when I first saw this flag, I was like, what is this flag I'm seeing all of a sudden? So this was a movement that I believe, because I haven't seen anyone else preface it besides Dutch Sheets, but it's a Christian fascist movement, basically. So
it's a Christian flag.
Yeah.
That's how they're using it.
That's how they're using it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's got nothing to really do with John Locke, even though they, use John Locke in there. So, again, and this was all over the January 6th insurrection video. You'll see these flags. I've also seen Nick Fuentes Groypers carry it recently. I've seen some Proud Boys carry it. So it's been getting a little bit more common than what it used to be. I think it's worth mentioning that as well.
It was absolutely popularized by Dutch Sheets. I don't know if he invented it for that purpose, but he definitely made it go kind of mainstream within the extremists.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to talk about a little bit more of the NAR movement. Let me play a video for you, for the audience too, so they can see a little bit more of how fervent, how passionate, I don't know how else you describe this, but there was a pastor or apostle, Abby, Blindness? So I want to play a little bit of a clip of her for a second so people can hear what she has to say, and we'll talk about it.
Okay, great.
We know that we're in a battle of the righteous versus the unrighteous, and the unrighteous are doing many things against a legitimate election, but the Lord. And as I was praying over fervently over all of our states, the thing that came to me, it was words of Jesus that came to me, was deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. God, deliver us. You are the deliverer. There's a lot of strategies that men use against your anointed and your purposes, but you are the one that delivers us from evil. And we want to take our focus off of looking at what are all these evil attacks against the righteous reign, and look at yours is the kingdom, yours is the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. And so, Lord, we thank you that you have brought many righteous leaders to the forefront, ones who have a holy boldness that they will step up, they won't back down. And I just say again from Psalm 105:15, do not touch mine anointed ones, do no harm to my prophets, do no harm to the leaders that you're putting in place. And we know, Lord, of the angel armies, we know that you have watchmen at the polls, that you have angels watching at the polls to guard for election integrity, to bring the manifest presence in those polling stations. And we pray that the polls will show the voting, it will show a comeback of the patriotism, of the righteousness of the Lord in our nation. And we also know we're in a season of aligning with political comebacks in the nations, and we align in this network with Israel, with Netanyahu.
All right, so I have to laugh just because it's kind of crazy how they have this tension between predeterminism, fate, right? That are righteous.
Yeah, how dare they? Honestly,
right, yeah.
That they're anointed by God and the rest of us are evil.
Right, that's exactly what she's saying.
Evil attacks. I mean, honestly, it infuriates me.
It infuriates me too. Evil attacks a righteous reign. That is one of the quotes that she said. What righteous reign? Is that Trump? Like, what's the righteous reign?
Well, I'm sure she supported Trump. It's whoever they anoint, and whoever they decide God has anointed is the righteous one. And it doesn't matter how, terrible they are in their own lives. They could be the worst people ever, like Trump, And I personally think probably to an extent Mastriano, but because they decided that they're anointed by God and they want to destroy the separation of church and state, then therefore that makes them righteous. It's whoever they support. So she was probably I don't know when that clip was from. If it was recent, she was probably talking about Mastriano.
November 8th. So I believe that she was probably talking about Doug Mastriano. We'll talk about him in a second. I want to play one more clip. This clip is from Flashpoint, which is that church that you're talking about. So yeah, this is from October 23rd, 2022. So this was recently as well.
Let's just all begin to turn around. God, we speak and declare over the United States of America, over this time that you have chosen of the midterm elections, in this time in our country, in this time in our nation. Lord, as we turn, we say things shift. We say things turn to righteousness, to justice, Lord, to truth. We say things turn back to the way of a divine reset and a rebirthing of this nation once again.
We bind every effort that the enemy would do to distort, to deceive, to lie and steal. We say, Lord, give us angelic hosts, many of them, to go to work for us. Send Michael if you have to. Do whatever it takes to stop any cheating, any lying, anything that the enemy would do to steal this. And now, Lord, as you hover, you release revelation. So we're asking you to hover over this state and speak to people who are in the balance. We're asking you to hover over their mind and break deception and darkness off of them and bring light to them and turn the tide and give us sweeping victory in the state of Arizona. And we ask it in the name of Jesus.
Lovely. Yeah, that was, I believe, Dutch at the end. And the guy spinning around at the beginning is Hank Kuhneman, who's not a full-on top of the food chain, but he's a pastor and he's clearly NAR affiliated. He frequently appears with Lance Wallnau in particular, who was one of the four men in that clip as well. But he was standing quietly there, which is unusual for him. Flashpoint, often what they did is often those four would be on their shows with people like Michael Flynn, made repeat appearances. Mike Lindell, who I didn't know this until recently, is a full-on Christian extremist, friend of the family. It was Ben Carson who apparently radicalized him into the family before the 2016 election. How convenient, because he's rich. And the recovering crack cocaine addict who is probably fairly easy to influence. So, I mean, truly, these people really, really wanted Pennsylvania of more than anything else that was on at risk in this last election. Pennsylvania is what they were targeting because it has 19 electoral votes, and it will, it will obviously have huge influence for the 2024 presidential election as well. And so,
and it's always a swing. It's a swing state too. So I want to. He made a mention of a quote that I wanted to bring up: rebirthing of a nation. How much of this is related to white supremacy? Because I feel like they kind of have white nationalist beliefs and they kind of cloak it in another language. Do you think there's a solid connection there?
I think it's not as solid as some people think. What I would say is there are going to be people in the movement who are white nationalists or maybe even white supremacists, but there are also people who probably are neutral on it. They don't care one way or the other. They may not be racist, but they are not going to defend your rights if it comes to that. They will absolutely join arms with the worst of the worst, most racist people out there, including, for example, Nick Fuentes, who is overtly not only racist, he's also overtly anti-Semitic. He says very, I wish I had the quote handy, but he can't stand Jews. And
Nick Fuentes is an incredibly anti-Semitic individual. We've talked about him on the show before. His movement, the Groyper movement, and his platform, Cozy TV, is they absolutely anti-Semitic. Like he specifically goes after that, and he's also very religious.
Right. Well, that's the other part I didn't realize. I knew he was a white nationalist. I didn't know he was also a Christian nationalist. And I gather that on January 6th, the leaders of that, like Ali Alexander, who is not white, we're willing to, Ali said specifically, we're willing to work with racists. And I think that this is equally true of the NAR, which played a much bigger role in January 6th than I think most people realized. And they were more than happy to have, for example, the Groypers, Nick Fuentes' followers, help at the Jericho March. The Hear the Church Roar rally was largely a NAR rally in December 2020. And there was a big—
Where was that held for folks that might be fresh information?
Sure. It was in Washington, D.C., and there was a lot of Christian imagery at the rally. And there were, the speakers included Michael Flynn, Ollie Alexander, Alex Jones, Lance Wallnau, the NAR leader, Lance Wallnau. Cindy Jacobs is another very big NAR leader. She, at one of her rallies, she had some men come up on stage and basically coaxed them into like convulsing on the stage because they were overtaken with the power of the Lord.
Lord, you have given President Trump victory over all these enemies, and we ask you to give him and us victory once again. Bless his campaign as it fights voter fraud and calls for every legal ballot to be counted, but every illegal ballot to be eliminated. Give our president holy wisdom. Surround him with your angels of protection and enable him to fulfill his oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and to protect us from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Thank you for all you have accomplished through him. Confirm him in his intention to eliminate corruption from government, to secure our borders and strengthen our military, to defeat terrorists, to foster law and order, to protect us from the China virus, to restore and strengthen our economy, to enter honest and fair trade agreements, to appoint judges who will faithfully apply our Constitution and laws, to defend the lives of the unborn from abortion.
So it's extremely frightening because it is such a fanatical movement. They have, their followers are primed to believe whatever their leaders tell them to believe, regardless of the facts. And obviously, if Trump was anointed by God, then by definition, there had to have been cheating, whether there was or wasn't in that world, in that type of mindset. So anyway,
that makes sense, actually. You know what? That actually makes a lot of sense.
Right. And so one of Wallnau's, he has a longtime event planner because they have a lot of these events and they film them and they post them on their social media. A guy named Steve Brown has been his longtime event planner, and he was listed on the permits for the Jericho March and for a January 6th One Nation Under God March. And he apparently worked with Ollie Alexander to prepare January 6th. So they were heavily involved.
Interesting. So Ollie Alexander actually had a video that he had done a live stream 2 weeks ago in which he basically said, if we lose the election, I'm going to say it's stolen. If I don't like the outcome, I'd say it's stolen. That's how I decide whether something's stolen or not, is whether I like the outcome or not, which is not how we divide. That's not how we decide whether election was stolen. Like, it's crazy that that's the disconnect that's being put forth. But it makes sense within the context of what you're describing. Basically, if their guy is ordained by God, that's the only motivation or underlying reason that they need. If it's against that.
That's right. And the notion that Mastriano painted himself as like a champion of election integrity is just also infuriating, because he specifically had posted a tweet that went viral and Trump retweeted it about Pennsylvania in 2020, in which he used an image that had switched primary and general election data, thus creating the false impression that more mail ballots had been counted than were sent out. And the thing is, people do make mistakes. So that doesn't prove intent, but he left it up long after it was debunked. And it's not really a close call. It's obvious that what he said was untrue. And he not only left it up after it was debunked, he even left it up after I reported on it for the Beacon. And I know he saw it because he blocked me right after I published the piece. He blocked me on Twitter. So, or someone in his campaign saw it and blocked me. He may not run his own social media, but and you know, he stacked his campaign with people who also had spread very clearly debunked falsehoods about the 2020 election, including Jenna Ellis and Frank Ryan. So
for folks that don't know who Jenna Ellis is, who is she and what's her relationship?
So she was one of Trump's lawyers during the effort to overturn the election. really sort of made a lot of people very puzzled because she doesn't seem to be super elite or extraordinarily skilled at her profession, and yet she was chosen. Yeah. It turns out that she is also within this same extremist community, and she studied under Michael Ferris, who is very big in the Christian extremist circles, and he's a big homeschooling proponent, and he's a lawyer, and he often is railing against the separation of church and state. He wrote the introduction to her book. So she now she spread among other things, she used a chopped up video in Georgia to falsely suggest that election workers had told observers to go home so that they could retrieve counterfeit ballots from suitcases under a table. When if you'd seen the full video, which they had, Ellis had the full video, or she worked with Giuliani, they had it. You would have seen that those were unscanned ballots, not counterfeit ballots.
Right.
They were unscanned ballots that the workers themselves had put into those containers because they were getting ready to go home until they got a call from one of their higher ups, the Georgia Secretary of State or the Director of Elections, asking them to stay. So that's Ellis. And yeah, Frank Ryan is a CPA who made another just BS claim. And Mastriano, not a close call either. Clearly was wrong. No apologies. That's the other thing. No apologies.
No, they never retract or apologize for anything they put out that they know is false information.
What kind of lawyer doesn't retract and apologize when they screw up on something that big?
Right. In fact, so I want to bring up an article that you did for Bucks County Beacon that's very interesting. It's called United in Purpose, the shady Christian nonprofit tied to a massive voter data leak and the big lie. Ben Carson rallied for Doug Mastriano last week. He's revered within a powerful Christian nationalist network that leaked voter data and was part of the Stop the Steal movement. What is the relationship with the leak data with Doug Mastriano? Because he just lost his election this week, so he's out. But why is this important, and what is this leak data about?
Well, there's the United in Purpose is the very NAR affiliated organization that I mentioned that was founded by the embezzler Bill Dallas, and it had on its board a NAR leader. Well, actually, United in Purpose. He had several sort of related organizations, which in and of itself was a little odd. But I'll just say it's very NAR affiliated, and expressly its mission is the Seven Mountains, and they're sort of like a Christian Cambridge Analytica. So they gathered data. I believe they got lists from the churches themselves of who their congregants were, and they added it. And ultimately, though, they ended out with a database that had a lot more than just the people that were going to church. It also had was 191 million voter records, although that isn't necessarily 191 million voters.
Right, just the records.
Right, and the data, and then the data had been enriched, meaning in Cambridge Analytica style, to talk about likes and dislikes and such.
Okay.
And right before the 2016 election, the data was left. It's called a leak by definition if you leave it unsecured on the open internet. And that's what a data breach researcher named Chris Vickery found. And he posted about it, and he testified, I think, to Congress about it. There was something related that he testified in Brexit in the UK over. So
that was related to this or something else?
I don't know if it was related to United in Purpose. I think it was more Cambridge Analytica, because there's a lot of overlap, I think, between the two.
Oh,
but in any event, this can obviously be used to influence voters for targeted messaging, and that's kind of the point. And it ended up, curiously enough, on in November. This was reported later, that it landed on a Russian hackers forum. So the question is, was it an intentional breach or an unintentional breach? And I don't know that we'll ever know the answer to that. But what was especially shady is that, given if you do sort of a chronology of events, which I put in that article, it looks like it might have been tied to Paul Manafort and the polling data that he was sending to, that he wanted forwarded to the Ukrainian oligarchs, because two of those met with a person from United in Purpose, a member of United in Purpose, Bob McEwen, who's also a member of the family, friend of the family. They don't call themselves members, I guess.
Right.
and another guy, another Representative Adderholt, who from, I forgot what state, but he has close ties to the family as well. And this was all clumped up around that transfer of polling data before the 2016 election. And yeah, so the United in Purpose guy actually went to Ukraine to their prayer breakfast and met with these shady oligarchs who had been funding Manafort during the preceding decade.
Okay, and how does this relate to Doug Mastriano? Was he part of the leak? Did he use the data?
Well, it's just, so what happened is Ben Carson. So United in Purpose is also the organization, there's multiple things, but it's also the organization that hosted that event before in 2016, June 2016 in New York that we started with.
Right.
With Ben Carson. And Ben Carson came out to rally. That was his sort of grand finale, was having Ben Carson come rally for him. And people kind of laughed because, Ben Carson's just going to put everyone to sleep, which I watched his speech. It wasn't that boring, but it was really, I think, like a signal. I think it was signifying that it was sending a message that that Mastriano is your guy to the Christian extremists. And that was kind of what I wanted to highlight. And plus it was an opportunity to talk about United in Purpose, which I had wanted to, since he and United in Purpose worked arm in arm. I just imagine they still have that data and they're targeting, and they probably used it to help do targeted messaging.
So they're probably using it to target messaging, mailers, text messaging, whatever else. Yeah. So I see what you're saying there. I want to actually circle back for a minute and talk about the family. I am quite familiar with the family. There's as you mentioned, a great series on Netflix about the family. But if this is a new group and you've never heard of them before, we should probably explain to the audience who they are. So the family, this is a group that has transcended just every presidential election for a long time now, right? They do prayer breakfasts, and whether you're Obama or George Bush, you attend these things, right? But they are a very powerful Christian organization that directly influences politics. So would you think that the family now is becoming much more extremist in the way they do things? Because inside that documentary on Netflix, you would even see guys like Obama attending their prayer breakfast. So they weren't really perceived at one point as being all that extreme. What's the whole story there, do you think?
I think they were always that extreme. It's just that we're finding out more about it now. And Doug Coe, who died in 2017, but in the series, and again, this is Jeff Charlotte who really exposed all of this because he was briefly a friend of the family. He would say that the more secretive your organization is, the more influence it will have, the more powerful it is. And they didn't ever want they didn't want to be even known as the family. But if you were going to say anything, the real name is Fellowship Foundation. Okay. But if you were going to say anything, you just say that you're friends with the family. But
people would know what that meant inside the halls of power.
Right. And that this Doug Coe apparently was extremely influential with foreign leaders, but he didn't want people really to know his name. So he'd be in all these pictures, but no one knew his name really, until I think Jeff Charlotte really kind of blew the lid off of it. And Jonathan Larson, by the way, is another journalist who did some incredible exposés on the family. But the thing that sort of changed, that is maybe a little bit more radical, is that in 2014, Putin, who at that time was suffering, the sanctions from the US and the EU had recently been imposed due to his recent invasion of Crimea along the southern border, and annexation of Crimea along the southern border of Ukraine. He made a strategic decision to become the global leader of the Christian right. And that was really launched about in 2014. So they were always kind of friendly, but he really decided to champion the Christian right. And I think
it was tied to all this foreign policy, geopolitical things.
Well, and I think the family has been maybe a big part of that through its prayer breakfasts. I've read about that, not in depth, but peripherally while I was looking at the World Congress of Families, which is considered sort of the top nexus maybe between Russia and the global Christian right, the World Congress of Families.
That's actually not surprising. The Christian right has always had its hand in certain outcomes geopolitically, and because they believe it's attached to, the second coming of Christ. I think Israel is another prime example of that.
Right.
This is why you see a lot of anti-Semitic Christian right folks. They still want to support Israel because they see that as a pertinent thing that needs to happen in order for Jesus Christ to return. So it wouldn't surprise me. It's not necessarily rational, but it's absolutely not as uncommon as one would imagine it would be. So why do you think Mastriano was rejected ultimately? Is his viewpoints, were they too extreme? Because his brand of MAGA is still working in certain other areas of the country. It was interesting this week because I think we're going to see Arizona have not a prevalence of that, with Carrie Lake is looking like she's going to lose her election. Blake Masters looks like he's going to lose his election. Lauren Boebert lost her election. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, she won hers. So it's a little bit depending on where you're at, whether these extremists are winning or losing. What's the case with Pennsylvania and Mastriano? Because his brand of extremism seems to be on par with Marjorie Taylor Greene's.
Well, I don't really know the makeup. I haven't analyzed sort of demographically the differences between those two races. I think that local media really did an incredible job. And I'm going to include the Beacon where I work, but really informing the public just how religiously extreme Mastriano is, and that it was even more maybe than just Christian nationalism, that it's Christian dominionism, and that they do want to destroy the separation of church and state. And by the way, I do want to say one thing: with people think that, okay, gay marriage is on the chopping block, and that is bad enough. But I think it's much worse than that. I think that they will criminalize homosexuality, the act of homosexuality, and they're probably based on what they have been supporting through the World Congress of Families in other countries. And the same people who the World Congress of Families is largely it's a US-Russia creation. So it's So for example, you have John Eastman, who is the guy who tried to overturn the 2020 election with a theory that he knew was bogus. So they will want to make it a crime, and they'll also want to make it a crime to not report people who are gay. That I really truly believe that this is where it's going, because this is what is started in Africa.
Yeah, no, they do have very extreme viewpoints. It is kind of scary. And if you're if you haven't been exposed to them, it's good that you. So hats off to the Beacon, because that probably did have an influence on this outcome. And maybe that is the difference between some of these extremists winning their elections and not. Adversarial journalism has a key role to play here. And if journalists aren't holding some of these individuals accountable or being honest about what their extreme positions are, it's a problem. So I see what you're saying there.
And I want to say also, it's also just ordinary citizens. I mean, I wasn't previously a journalist really until 2016 or 2017. And I'm a columnist now if there's a distinction between that and a journalist, I don't know. But so they call me a columnist. I do sort of opinion pieces, but frankly, they're very, very fact-based.
No, they are. They're excellent, which is why I invited you on the show.
Thank you. But there are just ordinary citizens in addition to me who do a lot of this open source research and then post it. Twitter has been incredibly important for that, to getting out the word, to have people hear in their own words, these extremists in their own words. So I'm not just telling them they're a Christian nationalist. Now, I'm not just telling them they're a dominionist. You listen to them. You can hear it from themselves. And I think that made a difference. And the fact that there were 19 electoral votes on the line, I think
it upped the ante.
I think it upped the ante, and that also brought a lot of attention. Pennsylvania is always such an important state. It's the Keystone State. It's always considered pivotal. And I think that just everyone was very focused on that race. Plus, he was so close with Abby Abledness.
Who is the person we played earlier, the blonde gal. Yeah.
Who's very clearly NAR. And he was denying that he was affiliated with the NAR. But you're right, Marjorie Taylor Greene is involved with them as well. And I just don't know. I never heard that there was a chance that she might lose. So maybe that was also
and she's a part of it is too gerrymandered districting in the House versus Senate races versus governorships. Like they all have different constituencies, and that does play a role. So we talked a little bit about the 7 mountain dominionists. I want to turn now to a group that you interviewed of parents in Colorado Springs, which looks like to be sort of a bit of a ground zero for how some of these Christian extremist groups are trying to infiltrate school boards, college boards, and whatnot. So I want to play a clip of this interview that you did, and you can tell us a little bit more about that, because I think this is something we need to pay attention to as well.
It's very strategic. But I don't know if people realize that what we're dealing with now isn't anything that we dealt with in the 1980s or the 1990s. I mean, as far as the amount of influence and impact that's occurring on the local level now, it really is, it's an experiment for what they're trying to do in other locations. I mean, even places on the West Coast, very blue states, if you're looking at red counties, you can find similar actions that are occurring at that local level. That is a map for what's happening here. So to think that it's just because it's Colorado Springs, well, it's not. We are just an experiment, but that is happening it's happening all over the nation.
Wow.
And we should specify that that was stated by Lance Wallnau at a recent conference in Truth and Liberty, that Colorado Springs was basically what I referenced earlier that got my spidey senses up, regarding Chaim Goldman saying that this was the hub or the epicenter. He literally said epicenter of the world, but Lance Wallnau legitimately came out and said that this was a experiment to be a theocratic hub.
Ah, geez. All
That
right.
was at the most recent Truth and Liberty conference.
Yeah.
Was back in September. Yeah, because I released a campaign video about Christian nationalism, and it was the same, happened to be the same weekend that Truth and Liberty conference was going on, and it was like the next day. He just came out and said it like flat out that this, I mean, completely validated, every claim that I was making. It was kind of funny.
Wow.
So first off, what is the Truth and Liberty Conference?
So the Truth and Liberty Coalition is another nonprofit. The leader of it is a guy named Andrew Womack, who has said on the Jim Baker show, by the way, yes, that Jim Baker, Tammy, and he's NAR adjacent as well. He has said that gay people should have a label on their forehead. So, and on their own website, they talk about the 7 mountains of influence. I believe because of all of the negative publicity they got from me and others, they now have a disclaimer saying that we're not dominionists. But I guess, the problem is there's no dictionary definition. If you look in Webster's, you're not going to see a definition.
Right.
They can define it differently and say we're not that, but they are.
Yeah.
And their board includes Lance Wallnau, so the guy I keep talking about, the NAR leader, and it also includes another NAR leader named David Barton, who is he sort of is like he's considered an intellectual in Christian extremist circles, and he's probably the top antagonist of against the separation of church and state. So he claims it never existed, that's a myth, but he's spreading he is spreading the myth that it was a myth. And
right.
So David Barton is on there, and their primary goal is to attack the education mountain. So that's kind of what they're about. And they are starting with Colorado, but they have nationwide ambitions. And this group of parents reached out to me after I published my first NAR piece with the Beacon that went pretty far, because they were so excited to see an article getting traction that talked about the 7 mountains, because they had independently in their district, Andrew Womack had targeted their school district in Colorado Springs and taken over a lot of the seats on the board. And they had been unable to get any traction with it in the media. And I had actually wanted to do an article as well, and I just ran out of time. So I did the interview in the interim, which maybe was better in some ways, because they're so great. I mean, I was going to do the interview anyway, but I hope to still follow up with an article. Because it is a model for the country, and they taught me things I didn't know. So they set up these hubs. Well, they consider them apostolic hubs, and they think that Colorado Springs is one of them. And then within the churches, within the hubs, they have these things called cultural impact teams. So within a church, they're training people to go out and invade the school boards. And they partner, by the way, with a guy named John Guandolo, who talks about, he trains people how to destroy people's lives, to get them chased, to humiliate them publicly and chase them out of town, basically. And that's what he does. And they partner with him, and they think that that's godly.
They think it's godly. And I think this does tie into what we're seeing at a lot of school boards across the country when it comes to LGBTQ rights, anti-trans things that are going on. We see the Proud Boys showing up, and, They are definitely part of it. I filmed a Proud Boy group doing a prayer circle, an absolute prayer circle about this stuff. So there's a relationship there as well.
Well, it's a coalition, and I think that it's Flynn and Stone put this coalition together. It's real. The connections are real, but I do think
I didn't know that. Okay.
What's the word that they call those connectors? I think they're the connectors.
Yeah, I mean, Stone put out a video last week about the election where he was calling the enemy satanic and was very religious. This video, and I had never really perceived Roger Stone as being very religious previously, but apparently that is not the case. We're seeing that come out now.
Well, he claims he's born again as of right before the 2020 election. Convenient timing. He claimed that he became born again, and
well, there you go.
He appeared on the Elijah List, which is another show that's run by another NAR leader who's on this list.
All right. So there, I mean, the right-wing extremists that, we see like the groups like Proud Boys, Christian Nationalists, like Groypers, even some of the neo-Nazis, some of the more disturbing Telegram channels that I'm seeing are called, Christian Arianism. Right. So it's definitely something that's sort of kind of coming together now, and school boards
they're willing to work with all of these people, no matter how hateful they are. If they call themselves Christians, they're willing to align with them, it seems like.
It's wild. And school boards seem to be a battleground for that reason. They want to influence education for the obvious reason. So so education is one of the 7 mountains. The NAR, they want to be involved with obviously all the 7 mountains, but education is one of the important ones. And this is, I know we have a California issue here in Orange County. There's a group that's been doing some similar stuff. So it is.
I didn't even know that. Boebert, by the way, spoke at that Truth. I think they mentioned it in that clip, but in another clip, she spoke at the recent Truth and Liberty conference. And so when there was a sort of a viral clip of her saying that we should have biblical citizenship training as a requirement in schools. Well, that's David Barton, who's on the board of the Truth and Liberty Coalition. He's the one who sort of patented the phrase biblical citizenship training, and he has these 6-week courses on it.
Maybe we need to have some sort of legislation that requires Constitution Alive and biblical citizenship training in our schools, and that's how we get things turned around. But there has to be real leadership from the Republicans, especially now.
So that's where she got it.
That is, I didn't know that. So biblical citizenship training, that is also part of NAR. So NAR has got some tentacles out there in the world. I want to also talk about the Southern Baptists and what's going on there with their secret list of pastors who have been involved in sexual assault. But before we switch to that, is there anything else about NAR that we should mention that's important?
No, I think, though, truly, they're probably one of the most important factions of the MAGA coalition, such as it is. And I think that is an underappreciated aspect of NAR. I mean, people know that they're hateful and they know that they're violent and they know all this other, or at least that they affiliate with like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. But I don't think it's appreciated quite enough, the degree to which the NAR has been exerting influence. And that even includes the 2016 election, because we were also focused on Russia. But what I think it was is that Russia gave a boost to the Christian extremists.
Oh, yeah, because it would serve the purpose of dividing and conquering, right?
Right.
All right. So in the news now that is also not getting a lot of attention. I know that this originally, I think, came out in May, but here we are now in November and very few people know about it. For reasons I don't understand. So the Southern Baptists refused to act on abuse. They had a secret list of pastors. This was an investigation that happened by the SBC Executive Committee staff. So I want to turn to this article just for a second and read a little bit of it. We can talk about it. Armed with a secret list of more than 700 abusive pastors, Southern Baptist leaders chose to protect the denomination from lawsuits rather than protect the people in their churches from further abuse. Survivors, advocates, and some Southern Baptists themselves spent more than 15 years calling for ways to keep sexual predators from moving quietly from one flock to another. The men who controlled the executive committee, which runs day-to-day operations of the Southern Baptist Convention, knew the scope of the problem, but working closely with their lawyers, they maligned the people who wanted to do something about abuse and repeatedly rejected pleas for help and reform. So, this is very much to me like what happened within the Catholic Church. And some of these victims are also children, let's be clear. How is this not making front page headlines across the country?
I think that people don't consider religion political because they don't realize the degree of infiltration from groups like the NAR, from Dominionists into the MAGA movement, for example. And they don't understand quite how extreme their views are. They don't have that Dominionist component, because keep in mind, Christian nationalism is also not a term in the Webster's dictionary. And people think, oh, that just means acknowledging that our founders were Christians. You know, some people may see it that way. And it's a lot more than that.
It's a lot more than that. It's definitely a lot more than that. I mean, these folks want to live under theocracy, and they don't seem to understand that living under a theocracy is completely what very few things in this world you will ever hear me call mutually exclusive. This is one of them, though. You cannot have American theocracy and civil liberties at the same time. It's just not possible.
No, it's not possible.
But in their minds, they've conflated them together to mean the same thing.
I don't know if they would say that they champion civil liberties, just their own. They just Christian
their
civil
own
liberties.
Exactly.
Only theirs are godly. But, the Southern, I think it's because, so for example, I really do think it's because people don't think of that as political. That's a problem with the church. But the people who cover politics didn't see the overlap. And one of the main people sort of ensnared in this scandal with the Southern Baptist Convention, which I didn't know until recently, also, this has been like a crash course for me, is a guy named Rod Martin. Have you heard of him? Rob Martin.
No.
Well, he was on the executive committee of the Southern Baptist Convention, and he resigned as these revelations have been coming forward. He apparently, people say that he mocked a victim on social media, which I believe to be true, because he also posted stuff about Paul Pelosi that was extremely offensive. Some of those memes. And he's kind of a really bad guy, but he's one of the chosen people. And he promoted, during the effort to overturn the 2020 election, a website called Every Legal Vote, which was created in part by United in Purpose, the same NAR group that I talked about. Which, by the way, the NAR goes out of its way to scoop up all denominations of Christianity. So they call United in Purpose. I think Bob McEwen, the guy who went to Ukraine and is on United in Purpose's board, I think he's Catholic. So it's not just one denomination. It's trying to bring them all together. But yeah, so the Southern Baptist, I think that was another piece I didn't have. Whenever I heard Charlie Kirk, for example, he was very big on social media, the head of Turning Point USA, and very big on the groomers campaign, calling public school teachers groomers and anyone who supports the LGBTQ community a groomer, and calling the LGBTQ community a groomer. I knew it was hypocritical to begin with, and it was obviously, I knew it was unfounded and offensive. But we've all been focusing so much on members of the GOP who've been arrested for pedophilia, and to counteract this. And I think that is important to point that out. And I have been pointing it out. In fact, a guy who worked for Turning Point USA in 2017 has been convicted.
That's right. Zoomer.
Pornography possession, but it was even worse. I mean, if you read the indictment,
it's terrible.
They were horrifying.
Yeah.
And Charlie Kirk has never said a word about it, Mr. Groomers. But it's worse.
He had a relationship with Nick Fuentes too.
I did not know that. I think actually, I think I did see that at first he was against Nick Fuentes, and then he decided to embrace him after all. Maybe,
and Nick started to, I believe, because some of these videos start to disappear from his Telegram, but he had videos with him. And
oh, really? I didn't know.
I strongly believe there is a very serious child pornography problem on the right.
Oh, there is.
I have seen too many examples now where it's just like horrifying stuff. So, I mean, is all of this anti-trans groomer rhetoric, is it just Olympic level projection?
I don't know if it's just that, but I think that the timing of it is very convenient. I had not made the connection. I had made the connection to the GOP pedophilia issues. I had not made the connection to the Southern Baptist Convention recent revelations until some extremist researchers reached out to me and started telling me about the Southern Baptist Convention. And I started reading some of their posts, and even the CRT, the first people apparently to bring it up were leaders of the Southern Baptist Convention right around the time when they knew that this report was going to come out. And a lot of people, it was a non-issue. That I think was projection, not projection even so much as a distraction. And then the groomers, I think, probably serves multiple purposes because they do truly want to demonize the LGBTQ community and anybody who supports them. So, but I think that it is also served the purpose of deflecting from the massive scandal in the Southern Baptist Convention. And Charlie Kirk is very tight with the Southern Baptist Convention. They promote his organization, and he goes to their events. I don't know that he's a Southern Baptist, but he's fully on board with them, and he hasn't been calling them groomers. So it's incredibly offensive. And it was a huge revelation. That was a big revelation for me.
It's very hypocritical, exactly. How deep are the NAR ties here with the Southern Baptist Convention?
That I don't know yet, but I think that Rod Martin, it's either Rod or Rob, I think has ties to it fairly clearly. And frankly, I think all of these Christian leaders that consider themselves ultra conservative in their religion or radically, extremist leaders. So even in the Catholic Church, there's an archbishop who's like the anti-pope named Viganio, and he's certainly not NAR. The NAR, I think, is the leaders themselves are primarily evangelical, but as I said, they make a point to be non-denominational in terms of their followers, and they clearly, at that Jericho March, you had Viganio speaking during the Jericho March. So I'd say anyone who's a big leader of an extremist Christian group is probably working with the NAR. I just haven't looked into
No,
it
that would sort of make sense. What about QAnon?
I forgot. I knew there was more on Rob Martin. He appears to be a member of the Ziklag group, that's the other thing United in Purpose does. The same NAR affiliated organization, they have a fundraising group that appears to pair rich Christian donors with Christian extremist political causes. And you have to have, there was Catherine, I think her name is Catherine Stewart, has done a lot of books on Christian extremism. And she did a piece on the Ziklag group where she had an invitation, and you have to have a minimum of $25 million and some other stuff. And Lindell is a part of it. And this guy at the former leader of the executive committee of the Southern Baptist Convention, who's also, what does CBN stand for? The
CNP or CBN?
No, CBN. It's
Christian National Broadcasting, or
it isn't actually something Conservative Baptist Network, I believe is what it is.
Okay. I mean, there's
also him.
Alphabet soup.
Yeah, he started that, and he's Ziklag, which is a biblical reference to a town that was destroyed. It was King David from the Bible, then used it as his base to regain everything that he had supposedly lost launch a counterattack against his enemies. So there's just very much back to this idea that anyone who isn't anointed by them or who doesn't agree with them is the enemy and satanic and all of those things.
Yeah, all those things. So basically this is like a patronage thing where the wealthy Christian extremist gets to subsidize the actions. So does that include people doing media work, propaganda videos, and running for office?
Exactly. So that last piece I did was so long that I keep forgetting what I said, but yeah. So the Ziklag group is a really, it could have just been a standalone article. I ran out of time. I'd put it all together as one, but the Ziklag group includes Steve Strang, who is the guy at Charisma News that sponsored Michael Flynn's multi-state Reawaken America tour. And so there's your media guy. And it probably includes a lot of people we don't know about, but it includes a rich Texas billionaire named Al Hartman, who is alleged, I don't know that it hasn't been proven, to have financed a lot of Michael Flynn's, anti-democracy work. And Michael Flynn, regardless, he's a Catholic, I believe, but regardless of his truly held beliefs, he's gone completely on board with the NAR. And he said it was during one of his tour event stops where he said that we're not just one nation we're one nation under God, and we should have just one religion, i.e. Christianity.
Christianity, of course, that's the chosen. That's just really crazy. How concerned should we be about Christian nationalism and its increase as far as our democracy is concerned? I mean, I feel like we're dealing with so many problems right now. Democracy in the country is under attack. It has been for a while. What's left of it, what the oligarchs haven't taken away. Let's put it that way. How concerned should we be about this?
I think incredibly. I don't think that Trump certainly would not have won without these people. That's why he had the private conference. I am sure that this is why Paul Manafort, sort of the liaison from Russia, because he'd been doing the pro-Russia work in Ukraine. I'm sure that this is why he recommended Mike Pence, because Mike Pence has attended these United in Purpose events he's a dominionist. I mean,
Mike Pence is pretty extreme. He's a pretty extreme religious guy in many ways. I think DeSantis as well.
Jenny Thomas. She hosted events for United in Purpose even after.
Oh, did she?
Yes, and in one of them she did so she is on the Council for National Policy,
right,
which is sort of the political leaders who are Christian fanatics. And that was
CNP is very dangerous.
Right. Ann Nelson wrote a great book about it called Shadow Network about the CNP. And so, but Jenny Thomas, she has hosted their awards ceremony for a couple of years. I mean, they give awards to people like Project Veritas. I mean, honestly, James O'Keefe, the people who have worked with Eric Prince with spies and things. And so she's the wife of a Supreme Court justice. And
no, it's scary.
Clearly, even the people who like the Kochs, they all made deals with these Christian extremists. They decided they wanted no regulation of their money, and that Christian extremists wanted to destroy the separation of church and state. And it seems they decided to make a deal.
No, they've definitely made a deal. So the CNP, for folks that don't know, has had their hands in all kinds of shenanigans when it comes to policy. Koch brothers is but one of the right-wing extremist libertarian types that fund the CNP. CNP members include media personality, not just religious folks, but media personalities, people in politics, people
Most of them are religious.
Actually. They are definitely all religious, but not necessarily by trade, is what I'm saying. Corporate CEOs, like the whole nine yards.
Right. I think most of them are going to be Christian extremists, though. So, for example,
they are absolutely hugely Christian extremists. In fact, they just had a meeting down here in Dana Point last year that was attended by even Alex Villanueva, who is our now outgoing sheriff. But these guys we can directly tie what the CNP has been a part of into why we now see Roe v. Wade being overturned. That's been on their list for a great many years. That was a stated goal. They are definitely connected to the Federalist group, which is looking to appoint extremist Christian judges. They've been very successful in that area. So,
And I think so. One thing I've been meaning, I still want to do an article on is the Jews that are willing to embrace sort of these Christian extremists, because Jay Sekulow, for example, I think was he a White House counsel? Or I think that's what he was for Trump. He worked for Trump in any event in the administration, and he is Jewish by background, but he's apparently a Messianic Jew, which means he's accepted Jesus Christ as his savior. So that's kind of how he fits in. And I think the same is true of, for example, I don't want to elevate her by mentioning her, but Laura Loomer is a protege of Roger Stone, who's way more dangerous than people realize, because he looks like such a joke.
There is a demonic portal, a satanic portal above the White House that appeared shortly after the election of Biden. And believe me, the Huffington Post and the rest of them, they have savagely attacked me for discussing this in public. But I conferred with Robin and I asked him, should I speak about this? The Lord is telling me to speak about this. And he assured me that's precisely what the Lord wanted me to do. And by the way, it's still there.
Is it still there? Because sometimes the camera doesn't show it.
Okay. I check on it every couple of days. By the way, you can zoom in on it, with a telescopic lens, and you see it's like a swirling cauldron. So it is still there, and prayer can close it. In fact, prayer is what we're.
But I do believe that he is very much as much a leader of the MAGA movement as Trump.
And 100% he is. Yeah, I agree. He sort of does the dirty side of the work for Trump.
Exactly.
So I think you're not wrong on that. There is definitely a section of extremely far right Jewish folks that have decided that it is okay to embrace these white nationalists and fascists as long as they support the state of Israel. That is not a controversial statement. I think the dialogue that you saw about, I want to say 4 years ago now, between Yair Netanyahu, which is Bibi's son, and Richard Spencer would be a prime example of that.
Oh God, I didn't know they met. Ugh.
Oh yeah, that was a whole that's a whole thing. So it's a very dangerous bedfellow game, in my opinion. But it is something that we are seeing happen, and Laura Loomer would absolutely be part of that.
Well, she accepted Jesus Christ, so she's always calling her. She even calls herself, a Jewess on her social media and all the stuff. But then there was a big post about how she was, drenched in the blood of Christ, and she'd accepted him as her savior, and it wasn't enough to save her campaign.
But
that was a bad sign, because you can honestly, if you want to know the direction things are going to go in the MAGA movement, look and see what Roger Stone and his proteges are doing.
Right.
And the anti-Semitism is another example.
It's
I
increasing
knew it was going to explode when I saw his proteges touting stop Jewish groomers. I'm like, okay.
No, it's definitely increasing as a problem. And it blows my mind how blatant some of these folks are publicly now. They feel so emboldened. I mean, it was bad enough 3 or 4 years ago, but I would say in the last year, it's increased to the point where, I had to reach out to a Proud Boy for comment on an article I was writing for the Daily Dot. And his response to me was, "Are you a Jew?"
Wow.
So I know that's sort of where we are at in the country. Like, he just didn't even.
That?
We decided to. Originally, I was like,
I'd like to see that.
He'd been.
Yeah, I see it all the time. I mean, when I post articles, if extremists see them, that people say, "Oh, Cohn, her last name," or figures Cohn, or I don't know. They'll say something about.
It's an unfortunate reality that we're dealing with right now, that this trope is kind of proliferated to the point where, and they don't even hear themselves. They're not ashamed or embarrassed by that ending up in print, which is kind of scary in a way.
Well, they knew they couldn't win they knew anybody respectable wasn't going to support them. So they're having to hobble together a coalition of misfits, and that would include anti-Semites.
100%. No, 100%. And, that's always been part of the extreme Christian right anyway, right? Because, you think back on Mel Gibson and the meltdown that he had, right? A lot of these folks, they blame Jesus or they blame the Jewish folks for the death of Jesus, even though Jesus is Jewish. I mean, although you do now see some of these folks making the argument that that's not the case, that Jesus is not a Jewish guy. So I've seen that in some of the...
believe that Hitler was sent by God to chase the Jews to Israel. I mean, Bruce Wilson is the guy who I learned about the NAR from originally. Wow. And he exposed that. He had a recording, and it went viral before things usually went viral, of him saying that Hitler was sent by God to send the Jews to Israel. And
that is fresh information.
His name is John Hagee, and he's still around, and he has a church. And one of Mike Flynn's, that thing where he said we need to have only one religion, that was done at John Hagee's church. And then they tried to, his son, I think, is maybe technically in charge of the church. So then they tried to backpedal, and they disowned the event or something. But wow. Yeah.
All right, Jennifer.
Demonizing Jews is godly because we'll chase the Jews from America to Israel, where they're supposed to be for the prophecy.
It's so sick. It's so sick and twisted. I can't wrap my head around it. Jennifer, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I'm going to have you back for a part 2, because there's so much more to talk about than this. But in the meantime, where can I direct folks to follow you, read your writings, if they have more questions?
Sure. So despite the recent developments on Twitter, I am still most easily reached on Twitter. I'm at Jenny Cohn 1, JennyCohn 1. And I'll continue writing for the Bucks County Beacon. And I have a Medium account under Jennifer Cohn. And I also have a YouTube account under Jennifer Cohn.
Okay. All right. Everybody follow Jennifer. She's doing some amazing work in this area. And I think it's something to keep an eye on, because it is not abating. It is actually growing. And I think it's going to become more problematic as we head into 2024. Thanks for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you very much for having me on.